Hello and welcome to Human Can Opener, the podcast talking, used to be nothing but Disco Elysium, but now it is all kinds of things, which is the perfect excuse for today's guest. I'm joined today by a really talented, super impressive YouTuber, a guy with talent for editing that makes me green with envy. His name is Jeff, or Jeffiot, if you are a fan of the YouTube channel. Welcome to the podcast, Jeffiot.
Thank you so much, and making me blush right off the bat. Happy to be here.
That's what I like to do. Make you all feel awkward about yourself. Then I've got the upper hand, right?
Yeah, we got. I mean, that's. I think Brits and Swedes have that in common. We have a word for it in Swedish called jantelag, the law of jante, which is essentially this cultural concept that means you shall not think that you are better than literally anyone else.
Yeah.
And it's like an ingrained Swedish culture thing that I think we have in common with the Brits. Like I can't do like compliments or.
It's like. I guess if I was to relate it another way, we really like people who are underdogs, and we really don't like. I don't know. If I think of Cristiano Ronaldo, he's quite, arguably one of two of the best footballers in the world, but you don't have to act so much like you know that.
You mean Zlatan?
Yes. What was I thinking? Of all of the players I should have named, Zlatan. But then he's gone so far into the arrogance that it then becomes endearing.
I mean, yeah. To be okay. First of all, I will say I know jack shit about football, so like I'm not going to be able to dive very deeply into this, but I will say that there are a couple of very funny early interviews with Zlatan when he is like young, way before he like took off big time.
Mm-hmm.
So like Swedish TV interviews with him,
Mm-hmm.
where he is the exact same way, like he is, or if not like worse or more. He's I think he's like been. He had like two choices to either become exactly what he is now or become nothing. There was no in between for that guy.
Yeah, no, I do admire it to a degree. Okay, we've firmly established you're Swedish.
Yeah. Get that out of the way right away.
Yeah, we've established you are a YouTuber, and that's where I'd like to go first. We will, of course, talk about Disco Elysium because you very recently did what I personally think, as a Disco Elysium YouTuber myself, is the best Disco Elysium video I've ever seen.
Oh, damn!
I will say that straight out off the bat. Okay,
that's,
so I'm very
big praise. Appreciate
very
that.
excited to talk to you about that. But let's just talk about YouTube in general first of all, because that is kind of where you are, most well known. Just how did that start, Jeff? We all have our story of why we decided YouTube was a thing, but I'd love to know how it started for you.
Yeah. Let's see. So I was actually on another thing a few weeks ago, where someone asked me the same question, and I stumbled and I thought about it afterwards that like I should have a better way to, but of course I haven't actually given it any thought. But so first of all, I do think that there's this thing where some people put like way too much thought into and this might sound like kind of ironic coming from me, seeing that like I'm now kind of known for being pretty meticulous and I put in a lot of time. But I think that there's something to the fact that like a lot of creative endeavors benefit from not putting a lot of thought into them. So it's not. I don't think that it was like that big of a decision for me to just like do that. It's like that one free website where anyone can upload anything. Like it's not a very like big step to take, in my opinion. but the origin story, as it were, is that I made an ARG, an alternate reality game, a fictional series that started on TikTok and went on for about a year, amassed some people, a couple 100,000 followers, I think, which, to be clear, in TikTok numbers is absolutely nothing.
TikTok's wild, right?
yeah. I mean, I got those 200,000 in the first couple of days, and then it just plateaued and nothing happened for the year I worked on it, except that I went from like first or second video had like 2 million views or whatever, I don't remember, and then the finale of the show had 10,000 views or something. So it's it's a very strange algorithm, but I did that for like a year, and basically what happened was I knew that once this project is over, I might want to do other like fictional series like this, but that's definitely not like all I want to do, especially maybe because it's pretty much impossible to monetize.
Yeah. TikTok specifically, or?
Well, both.
Yeah, both, yeah.
Back then, TikTok was, for me, literally impossible to monetize. There was no... they didn't do any payouts at all. As before they established the creator fund, or whatever the fuck they called it later, which was still only like in the US, I think. But regardless, I didn't make like a cent for that year of making content. And then as that was done, I was just kind of like, well, I don't want to do this forever, and I'd also like to be able to pay rent. And I was working at my 9-to-5 office job, and I got the opportunity to move in to this apartment where I'm now, move in with my girlfriend, and that kind of enabled me to like, what if I quit my job and just try, which is like, I wouldn't recommend that to anyone. It's a very big risk, but I thought, rent is pretty cheap in this place, and she had a full-time job, and she was the one to suggest it. So I was like, fuck it, sure.
That's half the battle won straight away, right? Yeah, you've got the backing from the girlfriend.
Yeah, so I was like, well, I'll quit my job. And I saw there's this YouTuber called Exerbia, who does sort of poetic type video essay, a lot of creative writing stuff. He did something for his second channel where he mentioned that whenever you start a new creative endeavor, to give yourself 2 years of like zero pressure, zero expectations, just like 2 years. That's like the perfect. And I thought that sounds, I can do that. So I kind of agreed with my girlfriend that I'll give it 2 years, and I'll try to work a bit on the side in the meantime. So I did some like editing for other channels.
Yep.
And got some money through that. And on December 24th of, well, 2 years ago now, but like, yeah, I posted a video, and up to that point I had maybe 4,000 subscribers. Posted a video, and I made a community post on YouTube where I essentially said like, it was like I was pretty down at that point, and I essentially said, today is my birthday. I'm turning 30. I've been doing this for 2 years, and all I'd like is to not stress about making rent. And if you want to check out my newest video, please do that, or whatever. And then I woke up the next day, and it had like, I don't know, maybe 50,000 views. And over the next like week or two, it got like 1 million views, and I went from 4,000 subscribers to I think 100,000.
What was the catalyst for that? Because that's so unusual for YouTube, right? That's really unusual. Was it
Yeah.
shared by a particular like bigger creator or anything like that?
No, so I think what happened was that, so not to suck my own dick in any way at all, but I do think that like the video in itself was like a good algorithm video. It like it had the potential to get a lot of views, and it reached that. What I think is like more, I guess, interesting or uncommon is how well those views translated to subscribers for me. Because if you take like my latest video now that has, I don't know, it's 200,000 views or something. I think I've
281,000, I think it is.
Oh, that went up really fast since like yesterday.
I think so. Yeah. I've got it on in the background actually. That should tell me if I just flick this. Oh no, 252. Sorry, my bad.
252. Yeah.
252.
Well, that's kind of what I thought. So, what was I saying? Oh yeah. Like that one, I consider one that was like pretty good in views to subscriber ratio, and I think it gained me maybe 5,000 subscribers. So what like usually I'll post a video, and if I get a 1,000 new subscribers or 2,000, like that's I consider that kind of like cool, nice. This did well in that regard.
Yeah.
So I think the anomaly with my like hit video, which was the skull trumpet video, was that it translated to so many subscribers, and I think I did it's just like very lucky, because in the video I had this sort of little spiel about like, hey, I just uncovered something that no one else knows, and I don't know if you've noticed this, and I had like a screenshot of my subscriber count at like 2,000 or 4,000, whatever it was. I was like, I don't know if you've noticed this. I don't have many subscribers, so if you're watching this, you're one of the first in the world to know about this. And I think the fact that I like drew attention to the fact that the channel was small in the video that exploded got more people to actively go like, oh shit, and hit subscribe. Because there are so many videos that have like a few million views and the channel has 2,000 subscribers, and it like people like the video but they don't subscribe to the channel necessarily.
Yeah.
So I think I was like very, very lucky with how I like drew attention to it.
Yeah, happy accident, because I suppose it was never like, I mean, did you put it in there as a deliberate kind of call out to it when you were thinking about it, or was it just a good image, or just you felt like it was a good message?
That's a fucking good question. I mean, of course but I guess I kind of saw it as just like the usual like, hey, remember to like, comment, subscribe, and all that bullshit.
Smack that like button, yeah.
Yeah. But instead of saying it straight up, like, remember to do this, I thought, saying, look at this little channel. What a tiny itty bitty little channel I've got there. Would be a shame, if it stayed like that. And not really. It's not like I expected it to actually like do anything. But which is why I was also like kind of down in the dumps after posting it, and then it was a little birthday present for me.
No, that's a nice story, and with the gift of hindsight now, talking about the stuff that you mentioned there, these are all actually classic tips for the YouTubers, right? Make people feel like they're going to be missing out on the next big like you revealed something brand new, and do you know what, look, only 2,000 people will know about this. Do you want to be outside of the next big reveal that I have on Skull Trumpets? No, you don't. Like,
yeah, it's
like
all
if you go on those SEO pages, which are just littered with fucking bullshit advice, a lot of it is that, right?
Yeah. Like, it's all about
FOMO.
It's all about manipulation. I'm a very hands-off creator when it comes to appeasing the algorithm and being good at doing those things. So it was very much like I was very lucky, I think. And when I've talked to other creators before, I usually am the one to be like, I'm the last person to give advice, because if I if I was aiming to just grow my channel as much as possible, about 75% of the videos on my channel would like not be there.
Yeah, and you'd have a lot of shorts. That seems to be the way now, doesn't it? Is shorts seems to be, and not just from creator side, but YouTube are now very quickly waking up to the realization that they can pay jack shit for ad revenue, but still get somewhere near the same reach, if not more. Yeah, okay. I realised we went straight into, so tell us about YouTube, which is a nice introduction to you. People familiar with the format will be going, hang on a minute, what the fuck is Harvey from Stardew Valley's favourite game? He hasn't told us that yet. Yes, I do read your comments, Jeff. I see them all.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought that was a nice Easter egg for anyone familiar with your videos, that you've been compared to Harvey from Stardew Valley.
I've gotten that a few times in the comments, but honestly, the fact that you picked up on it, like, I didn't think... I have a tendency to wear green, and whenever I do, that's when the comments start flooding in.
Yeah, I think the one I spotted was, I can't believe I just spent 4 hours listening to Harvey from Stardew Valley talk about saw traps. So I do want to talk more about YouTube, but let's just, I need to reorient. That was a lovely introduction to how your journey began. But you did make your way into my stratosphere because of a video game called Disco Elysium, of course. So just tell us a little bit, you know how the fable goes now. When did you first have a controller in your hand? When was young Jeff introduced?
Yeah. So earliest memory being at like some friend of my dad's place. He had some kids, and they had what I now know was an NES with the Addams Family game, I think.
Wow, yeah, okay.
And but I played that once. It's just one of those core memories that kind of stuck with me. And but I think it must have been 2003 I got a PlayStation 1. It was my big introduction to gaming. Still my favorite console to this day, I'm pretty sure. It must have been 2002 or something like that.
Well, PS2 was just turning up around that time.
Yeah, because I got a PS2 in for Christmas 2004 or 2005, somewhere there. So this must have been 2001, 2002, somewhere like that. And I think that's around when PS1 released. But I didn't get it at release. I sound like I got everything on release as a kid, which I definitely did not. So my timeline might be a little bit off. But PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2, and then a few years after that, I moved on to PC gaming and have been stuck there since then. I actually just a couple of weeks ago got a controller for my PC, a really nice one as well. Heavily recommend this one. And have sort of realized what I've been missing out on. Because the big white wall behind me here, we have a shitty old little projector up here so we can watch movies on there, and so we've been kind of couch gaming, me and my girlfriend, a little bit with a controller, and I've been like, damn, this is so I've been
the comfort level of it, you mean?
Yeah,
I know what you mean.
And so with PC gaming, you've got the social aspect of many games being online, and that the fact that you're on a PC, so you can just hop on over to whatever, like Discord or something. But there's like a whole other type of social aspect when it comes to like couch gaming, like controller gaming, when you sit next to someone and fucking... Of course, the obvious example is like split screen.
Played Overcooked with your girlfriend?
No, I have not, but I know.
I highly recommend. I wouldn't bother with Overcooked 1 because there's a throw-in mechanic which completely changes the game entirely.
Okay.
But Overcooked 2, I mean, it may split you up because it is one of those
that's always the risk.
rage-inducing. Why the fuck didn't you chop the lettuce? type games.
Yeah.
But it's fantastic fun for couples.
And we already have that. We already have that without the game. So like,
real life. Why didn't you?
there's a lot of
it?
lettuce arguments and carrots and shit that's not going into the right pots or whatever. Yeah.
If you're not arguing over the vegetable arrangements in a relationship, are you even really in love? I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But no, we haven't gotten that far, but also because we only have like the one controller. But we've been pretty comfortable, right? I mean, it's easy for me to say, but we've been pretty comfortable playing like, essentially, what's it called? No siblings, single kid.
That's the controller type stuff.
Yeah, except that when you don't have any siblings, you don't pass the controller ever. You just have a friend over that sits and fucking watches you play. And that's been working pretty good, she's enjoying it.
To be fair, it's always something I try to. So my partner, she loves Crash Bandicoot 1, 2, and 3.
Hell yeah.
And Overcooked. That's really about it. She doesn't mind a bit of the old NES Mario games, but those are really her jam. So I have kind of tried to get her, because she does like stories like The Last of Us, for example. I've tried to say, just sit with me. Like, you don't have to play it, but just experience it with me, because this is like really cool. And she can't bring herself to do it.
That's kind of how we've been approaching it as well. Like she isn't much of like a gamer or anything. So it's been. We just finished Animal Well a couple weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
What a fucking game that is! That's an insane experience.
It's one of the guy, Paul Looney, the guy who made God Please, recommended that when he came on, and that's over a year ago now, and I still haven't got round to following up on that recommendation. It's like
here's the second one.
Metroidvania type thing, right?
Yeah, in a sense. I don't want to say too much. It's the type of game where you don't want to know much. I went in pretty much blind. But it's one of those games where it's like, oh, this is more than meets the eye, and that's all you need to know. And then you go into it, and then you go like, holy shit. And then at a certain point, you're going to have to like start, once you've gotten to a certain point of like essentially beating the game and then realizing that you haven't beat it and whatever, then you're going to start want to like, okay, so what the fuck does this mean? And you start Googling it, and it's like, oh, okay, you need to be like 50 people to solve this thing, but it'll reveal something insane. And it's an insane, especially for me coming from having a sort of background in like ARG stuff with like puzzles and secrets and built-in little hints that, oh, I'm supposed to do this or do that. Yeah.
Nice.
Very, very heavily recommend.
Yeah, I think it's on PS Plus as well, so I can get it for free, in quotation marks. I just finished Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Were you a Final Fantasy VII guy?
Nope.
Okay.
When it comes to AAA gaming, you can essentially assume that I have not played it if it's after PlayStation 2.
Wow, okay.
I have been completely out of like. So for a few years, I just simply didn't play much games. Like I stuck to, I don't know, casual, like fucking playing Counter-Strike with a friend a couple of times a week, and whatever sort of shit like that. A lot of Source games and Gary's Mod and whatever. But it's mostly now the last few years that I've like gotten back into gaming big time and realized like what a huge part it's played for me in my life, and how much I actually like love the medium. And my interest lays mainly with like independent stuff. Doesn't have to be fucking just the smallest indie titles. I mean, I think Disco Elysium is a great example of something that is like, it's obviously indie, but it's also not like a single dude making it in his bedroom and posting it on itch.io.
Yeah, way more funding than any real comparable indie as well.
Yeah,
that's the thing that people seem to forget. It started off as a little kind of pocket group of people, but very quickly was not. So yeah. I'm kind of with you on the indie. I'm probably the hybrid guy, to be honest. I just fucking whatever take. I've been really like I quite like all of the Sony IPs and stuff like that, despite them their obvious, misgivings. But I don't mind it too much. But
I did play Last of Us. I did play that back when it came out, and I would say that's like one of my favorite games as well. So it's not. I don't have anything against AAA gaming or anything. It's just I've just been out of the game.
Yeah, no, I get it. Last of Us and Disco Elysium are probably the two things that made me way more critical of AAA, actually, because I come away from Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Now, the thing about the remakes of Final Fantasy VII is mechanically and gameplay-wise, you will not have more fun. Honestly, it's just like fighting and doing the stuff is great fun. But holy shit, once you've seen how good a bit of writing can be in any medium, really, and you see what feels like the effort to make it a badly written, convoluted mess, like it could only have been through sheer effort to make it as bad as it is, right? And you just come away going, thank God it was actually fun to play, because I think I would have given it like a 2 out of 10 otherwise. It was pretty, depressing as a fan of the original.
It's about it's comparable, of course, to like Hollywood slop when it comes to movies. I have, since, I don't know, 4 or 5 years now, completely lost pretty much all interest in anything that like, if it's in like theaters in Sweden, then I'm probably not interested. And I've gone like more and more, I've gravitated towards indie shit there as well. And there's so much like good creative stuff out there that is simply like not getting the time of day. So I'm kind of happy with. I do think I'm like missing out on some stuff, both in gaming and in with movies, but like I think at the end of the day, I am mostly consuming stuff that is more, if nothing else, and like it's more interesting. Than
I
fucking agree. Infinity War Part 3 and like Iron Man died again, or I guess like it's.
Yeah, no, I'm completely with you. I get criticised by a lot of my social circles for being too fussy about this stuff. Like someone will recommend me, I don't know, Peaky Blinders is a good example, because the common man loves Peaky Blinders. And I had the same reaction to it I had to Game of Thrones, which was contrarian, really. And kind of dismissive of the general public's idea of what makes good stuff.
It stems from like contrarianism, and I think that like I've said to my girlfriend a few times, because I've never seen Game of Thrones, that I think the only so when I was in my like, I don't know, like early 20s maybe, I was the exact same way about this stuff, just as I am now. Like I'm not that interested, but I think the difference now between now and then is that it used to be simply only contrarianism and just me being like, I am not, I don't know, kind of thinking of, no, that's for the fucking common folk. I don't give a shit about like the next Game of Thrones season. Like almost, I wasn't that much of an asshole, but almost to the point of like, you sheeple going out there watching your slop. Like I'm here enjoying real art or whatever. And I think that like the difference between then and now is that now I'm like, I acknowledge that Game of Thrones is probably, other than the end from what I've heard, is probably amazing, because I don't think that I'm like smarter or better at judging anything than the general population. So most likely Game of Thrones is fucking amazing. Like why, if everyone was saying it, everyone was watching it, then why wouldn't it be? It's just that I am not interested in having that experience. I'm sure that if I sat down to watch it, I'd love it, but there are other things I'd rather watch. So that's like the main difference for me. It's kind of went from being of the more asshole-ish variety to just like more being able to make your own decisions about what to consume and what feels like worth my time.
Yeah, I think turning 30 was the point for me. It took me until I was 31 to realise it had happened. But I look back now and I go, actually, the thing that happened to my brain chemistry when I turned 30 was that I suddenly realised that I'd spent the previous 29 years, apart from obviously when I was little, making sure I wasn't missing out on all of the stuff that people think that I should or shouldn't be doing.
Yeah.
Like I should be in the pub with friends, or I should be watching this stuff that everybody, and I should like football more than I currently do. And then I was like, actually, I'm not wasting another minute on anything that I don't want to do. So
Did you go to? I have a question about that. Did you go to a lot of like shows, like live bands?
No, I was more of a, because my younger years I was way more into dance music, so I went to a lot of festivals and raves or club nights rather than bands. But I did have that kind of, same thing but different kind of idea. Yeah.
Because that's one of those things that I found, like, I still want to go and see shows if there's like a band that I like.
Yeah.
But I had the realization maybe a couple of years ago, and I'm 31 now for reference, that I was like, I think that I can list on like one hand the shows that I've been to that have been worth it, that have been good, that haven't left me just drained, and that. And it's the sort of thing where I've just like, because everyone's always like, oh, there's gonna be this fucking show, and I hadn't even questioned the fact that I kind of didn't really, I wasn't that into seeing live music in the sense that others, and like I was at a show just last week, and it was great, but that was the first time I've been to a show for like a few years. It's one of those things. It's like, I wanted to go see it, so I did. But for a few years now, I've been just like, no, I'm not gonna go to some fucking crowded, loud basement to see some band that I kind of half like or half know, and then go home. Fucking old man yells at clouds, but I'll be going home with a migraine, and it's just not worth it.
Yeah, the last 2 gigs I went to, I only did them because it just happened to be that the company I work for was offering VIP tickets, and they just happened to be 2 bands that nobody else in the company has heard of except for me. On the one of them, I was the only person in the VIP booth, and on the second, I was one of only about 4. And they were bands that I really wanted. I was very lucky, but I was like, this is the type of animal I want to be. I was like, stick me in a quiet corner where I can go and watch my favourite bands.
Yeah,
and I was happy. I was very happy, but that's a very expensive type of animal, Jeff. Anyway, we've derailed massively, which is hilarious given that we spent a good amount of time before recording saying, let's not allow ourselves to...
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah, I think this is a bad, like, we've got a bad... I think our specific strains of ADHD might not be a good mix for keeping things on track.
Okay, so seeing as we were venturing into stuff that we love and do not love doing, Jeff, should we just quick fire for the audience at home? You can pick, you know how this goes, all of the media stuff. I'm assuming by now, everybody should know by now how many episodes we're in. So, favourite game of all time, Jeff? Hit me.
Well, the boring answer is that I have been saying Disco Elysium whenever I get this question lately. I'm
all right with that.
Yeah, I guess I should probably. It's just to give another answer. I'll say Stanley Parable.
I've never played that. Go on.
You've got a couple, like, it's not even that long. The new, whatever it's called, Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe, I think it's called.
Yeah. It's one of those things I own several copies of it because it's been dished out. That it'll take you an afternoon or something. It's not that long, and it's to me it's like a. I remember almost crying when I played it, not based on like anything that happens in the game, just based on this sort of like amazement at like the sheer creativity and the fun, like the whimsy of it all. It's just, I think it's beautiful. It's great. A little bit overlooked in terms of like people just thinking of it as like this goofy game, and I think that there's, I mean, it is a goofy game, but there's something to the goofiness that really touches me. Yeah. Yeah, again, one of those that I really should be playing, to be honest.
Do that before Animal Will. Just
nice quick.
set aside an afternoon.
Okay. I'm going to leave movies till last because it will nicely segue into some more YouTube stuff. But TV series, you can give us a shout on that one.
Trying to go for somewhat deep cuts, but let's say, I mean, best shows of all time. We've got like Twin Peaks, Breaking Bad, shit like that. My main recommendation though would probably be 2006 HBO show called Life and Times of Tim, which is an animated comedy show that fucking no one.
I've never even heard of that.
No one has, and it flew under the radar, and it has like a cult following, but it flew under the radar, and it is probably one of the most like inspiring pieces. I mean, if you Google Life and Times of Tim, you'll see the art style, and you'll immediately go, oh, okay, because it's got a vibe to it, and it's extremely funny, I think.
Do that live just so I can get a look at it.
Do it.
Life and Signs of Tim.
Life and Times.
Life and Times, sorry. What did I say? Signs. Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's exactly the reaction. Oh, okay.
Yeah. All right, it's on the list. I think it's for some reason in the UK it's on Prime now, Amazon Prime.
Yeah, it's been for years. Sometimes you can't find it anywhere. You can't even find it to download it because I don't think every season has even had like a DVD release. It's extremely fucking funny. So like the main guy is like the guy who wrote it, like directed it. He voices the main character, and the design of the main character is sort of like based on him, and it's got sort of like a Curb Your Enthusiasm type vibe to the comedy about it, and I think it's great.
Now you've really sold it to me. Okay.
Hell yeah.
Life and Times of Tim. Right, on the list. The ever-growing list, I have to say. I've only just managed to finish Arcane recently, so I'm so behind everybody else. Which I am obliged to point out, by the way.
Yeah, she'll probably come up, and unfortunately she'll probably start rubbing against the microphone, and then I'll have to move her away, but she's not the most social creature.
No, cats are a law upon themselves, aren't they? They do what the fuck they want. Okay, you did mention that you'd been to a gig recently. Was that your favourite band of all time, or do you have like a... I mean, I always find music a lot more difficult to kind of pinpoint because you have phases with music, right? But is there one that's kind of been a particular inspiration to you through life or stuff?
The most constant one would be Neutral Milk Hotel.
Great name.
Yeah. But they've been with me since always, and I mean, like it's not since always, but since I was 15 or something.
Yeah.
Favorite band back then, and at the end of the day, it's got to be my favorite band today as well, despite the fact that they only have two albums and a total of 20-something songs. So like, not a huge discography to dig through, but In the Aeroplane Over the Sea is amazing, and yeah, their first album, Every Island, is also great.
Thank you very much. Music recommendations are always the easiest ones to follow up on as well, which is great. So I do like to try and do what I can. Okay, book or books plural. It's up to you.
House of Leaves, which I have it out even. I'm not gonna get it. Whatever.
You have a quote from House of Leaves in chapter 11
I do.
Of your Disco Elysium video ish.
That's a good call. If that's it, I have no idea myself, to be honest.
It's where you open up with a working class woman, and then
the nightmares quote. That's from House of Leaves. It's an amazing book. It I would say that it's in many ways like the sort of like a book equivalent of Disco Elysium in the sense that it's sort of an indie darling. Sorry, my cat fucking keeps. Now she knows. She knows I'm recording. Now she knows I'm recording, so now she's dead set
I see.
on bothering. Now I'm gonna shut her up. Hold on. Sorry. It is a bit of a Disco Elysium like book in the sense that very praised when it came out, but kinda went on to become like a cult favorite, and it has like a big following, but has not doesn't like have the biggest presence in pop culture at large, but also keeps like coming back every few years, and maybe mostly Disco Elysium, like in the sense that for the people that have like truly experienced the book, once you're done with it, you're gonna be talking about it, and you know when you hear something on the news or you're walking outside and you see a house and you go, oh, kind of like Disco Elysium, huh? Like there's a guy and he has a name and you go, he sounds like a Disco Elysium character. The House of Leaves is the exact same thing. You'll like see, you'll read or hear or see anything and you'd be like, oh, kind of like a House of Leaves reference, isn't it? So it sticks with you.
Yeah. Interesting. I've made a note to come back to your Disco Elysium reference remark because it makes me laugh. All right, let's segue nicely, like a bunch of professionals here. We're going to segue beautifully so we'll finish this media dive by asking what your favourite movie is. Go on. I'm very intrigued by this one.
And it's, of course, like the hardest one.
Yep.
I'll mention two very like opposite ones, and hopefully that'll encapsulate as much as possible. So the 2010 Norwegian movie called Troll Hunter.
Not heard of it.
Which is it's a found footage, like handheld, about it takes place in Norway, and these film students are following this guy who's whatever the fuck it's called when you like hunt illegally without a permit. Like there's this guy who they're like, oh, he's shooting bears and he's not allowed.
Yeah.
So they're kind of film students, kind of following this guy, and as you can probably tell by the title, it turns out that he's not quite hunting bears, and it is hilarious and really cool. Like really, it's got some very like good effects, and the writing is amazing, and it's fucking great. And I think a lot of people might be like put off by the fact that it's like in Norwegian, but I mean there's subtitles, and I've had international friends watch it and they've loved it, so heavily recommend that one.
I love foreign cinema, by the way, so that's absolutely fine with me. Before you mention the second one, I just wanted to mention, I'm sure it's not called that, and I think it's Swedish. Let the Right One In?
Yeah.
Is that a Swedish film? Is that right? Sorry, Scandinavia tends to blur into one.
Yeah.
Especially when you get the media. I go, it's one of those snowy places. I don't know which one, but yeah, it's Swedish, right? It is
Swedish. The book is Swedish. I am looking. You might want to make like a little cut here because I actually want to grab hold. Just because I wanted to, I can't find it now. But yes, that is a Swedish book written by a guy called John Ajvide Lindqvist. And I will add to my book recommendations a John Ajvide Lindqvist book called Pappersväggar, Paper Walls, collection of short horror novels that I think is much better than Let the Right One In and some of his other like hits. So I heavily recommend that. But it's Swedish. The movie isn't Swedish, but if I'm not misremembering, there is a Swedish movie and international version. I might
Yeah,
be
they
wrong,
made an
though.
American remake at some point. Yeah, but I always remember one of the. I think to do the effect of stabbing, I remember learning for the Swedish film that they'd just got like some steaks or something from like a butcher or whatever, and literally like got the mic right next to it while they stabbed actual meat with a knife. They went to like those kinds of, and I always love just the simplicity of it. Well, why don't we just stab actual meat? Like nothing's going to
Yeah.
stay more authentic than that. Yeah.
Yeah, truly, and it is probably extremely visceral, if I had to guess.
Yeah. Very, very good. You were going to say another film?
Right, movies. And to like get like I guess like the other side of the spectrum, Birdman.
Oh God, I'm so fucking glad that you're the first person that's said Birdman, and that film is. I mean, it's all one shot, right?
I mean, not actually, but
no,
yeah.
but it's You watch it as one continuous shot, yeah. And the performance that sticks out. Well, Emma Stone is fantastic.
Emma Stone is amazing in that. Yeah.
But you can honestly inject Edward Norton into my veins in just about any performance he puts himself to. That guy is something else, particularly in that.
Yeah, I think I saw it.
Why Birdman?
I think I saw it in theaters 3 times. It's like the last time I remember So, what fucking year was Birdman? Hold on. I want to say like 2014. Holy shit. Okay, time fucking flies.
So 11 years ago, that film. Wow.
Holy fuck. Okay, well, I remember that was probably the last year that I cared at all about the whatever like big movies were out.
Mm-hmm.
So it was that, and it was like Spotlight that a lot of people love. And is it Spotlight the drummer movie? I keep mixing them fucking up. No, Spotlight is with the fucking with the Mark Ruffalo. But then the guy who does the drumming, Not Quite My Tempo, that one.
Yeah.
All of those were like coming out over
Whiplash,
the course.
is it?
Whiplash, yes.
Yeah.
All of those were coming out over the course of like a couple of years there, and I remember going and like seeing all of them. They were like Oscar nominees, so I was like kind of keeping up. And I remember Birdman being like my last sort of somewhat big budget sort of Hollywood movie that I walked out of going like, holy shit, like cinema is absolutely not dead. It's just I think it's amazing. Everything from the cinematography to the soundtrack. They got a lot of this like sort of minimalistic, it's just drums, and they even have scenes with a guy actually sitting in the scene playing the drums as they like walk past. It's a bit Wes Anderson-esque, but without the quirk.
Yeah, I like the thing that I would say that I felt about Birdman above all else was that. So obviously, a lot of the film is based around him trying to break into theatre, right?
Yeah.
And break away from this, franchise type stuff. And it's done in a way where you feel the same way you do. If you've ever been to much theatre shows, like a high-end theatre show, where they really do, like, it's quite extraordinary what they can pull off on a stage, which you think could only be possible in movies.
Yeah.
And that's how I felt watching Birdman. I felt like I was so aware of the illusion of it all, but still just along for the ride. Does that make sense? Like I felt like I could see all of the cracks. I knew it was a trick, but I was still so like in that it worked on all the levels it should.
And in a sense, you're like kind of thematically getting the theater experience as well from how it's filmed, which is like an aspect of it that I haven't really thought of it in that way before. But that's true. There's something to the fact that like. If you have a pretty wide angle lens camera, just sort of walking with the characters and then just like resting, and you don't have the traditional cinematic language, you're sort of getting a theater experience which connects, of course, very well with the plot and the themes of it. So yeah, I haven't thought of it in that way, but that's definitely like one of the strengths, I think.
Yeah.
And it's all around extremely good, and this can be said about anything, but it also has like some pretty strong Disco Elysium vibes, I think, with the Birdman having this like
His alter ego talking.
It's
to
sort of
him.
like alter
Yeah.
ego character with a deep growly voice telling him to. It's sort of like an electrochemistry within him.
Yeah. Half like, kill him
Mhm.
now. Yeah. So the reason I was excited to segue from movies into some deeper talk on your YouTube stuff is because of, I mean, you can obviously speak for yourself, but I feel that there's a clear influence from the cinematic world on a lot of what you do. So if I just I'm just on your channel now, just to refresh my memory and maybe yours, just looking through, it's not just a particular type of influence from cinema either. It seems that you have like a nice holistic view on some of the art form, and you kind of, there are elements of the art form that you've taken and seen an opportunity to run with. So just going through the list, there's Ghost Guys, which is very perfectly up my street, to be honest. I'm a big spooky Harry Dubois fan, and I love the absurdity of all of those like haunted house things, right?
Yeah.
And it's done in such a beautifully kind of indie way, even though you're clearly like way, I don't know, it's like faux indie type, we don't know what we're doing,
Yeah.
kind of quirky comedy stuff.
Kind of particular about like picking out a camcorder that might not be like the best. It's like 480p camcorders and like the green night vision stuff, and yeah.
And there's even a moment where, and I love that you do this in all of your content, or at least certainly the ones that I've seen. You break the fourth wall, but in such a subtly, like, partial way, kind of like, I don't know, you make it just slightly less opaque, I guess. There's a moment where you say, you know, what should I say? I don't know what I should say. And it's just these little lines that you have throughout all of your content where you have like this, you're playing the role of someone who doesn't know what they're doing, but you're also very conscious of the audience picking up on that. I think it's very, very clever what you do. And that's just one video I'm talking about. But there's, of course, one I'm sure you're very proud of, which is the scientific rating of every saw trap. Is that your most popular video ever? 1.1 million?
No, that's still skull trumpets.
It's still skull trumpets, yeah. You've got lots of, did a couple of iceberg videos, and again, the self-awareness of being like a millennial doing something that's kind of, you know, I just love how like, your awareness of internet culture is very apparent. The other one that I will point out as being related to cinema is the Toy Story 4 video, which I think actually deserves so much more attention than it's actually got, despite it being a, you know, reasonably successful video. I think you've got a real knack for deconstructing this stuff and repackaging it as something that is easy to consume, understandable, and above all, for me, very funny. So, and there isn't really any one thing, I think, that you could define Jeffiot as, other than, for me, from my point of view, very high quality editing and production. So, I guess my first question is, what is Jeffiot to you? What is the channel to you, and what is it that you want it to be able to represent?
First of all, I love that we're finally getting into the first question here. You presented with my first question is, but to answer the first question. So I think like it's the first of all, like the channel as a whole is very much like an extension of me, such a fucking lame answer, but that in the sense that like I don't, I think I mentioned before that I don't play that much into the algorithm. I don't have anything against trying to do that somewhat. Like you gotta, especially if you want to like have it as like a full-time job, then you don't have much of a choice. But I'll make videos on shit that isn't maybe super interesting to many, and then I'll do, like, for example, I knew when I did the second installment of Ghost Guys that like this shit won't fly. This is not why a lot of people are subscribed to my content, and I was absolutely right. Like it's probably like the biggest like dud in numbers that I've had since my channel kind of took off. But like I knew that going into it, and so it's like very much an extension of me. But at the same time, you were kind of talking about, I find that an interesting observation, this sort of like faux unprofessionalism. And there is something to that like I'm not even quite sure. And I think I touch on this a bit in the Disco Elysium video, but this sort of like, when are you playing a character? When are you completely yourself? And when you present something online to potentially hundreds of thousands of people, like how do you draw the line? What's real? What isn't real? In the Disco Elysium video, there's a section that I'm like, I talk about how this is the second time I'm recording it because I didn't quite get it right the first time, and then that is true. That's like I did do that, but honestly, I had maybe changed 3 sentences from how the original one was. I mostly didn't like how I was sitting in the original take. And because everything is like, in a sense, it's a fictionalized version of me and a fictionalized version of reality. So like it's this like constant sort of battle of like, I only do videos on shit that I'm actually for the time into, curious about, or like want to talk about, because like I have not so far, at least I don't think, made a video about something that I'm like, I don't really care about this, but it probably, like, I know others will. So in that sense, it's very, very honest. But at the same time, I mean, it's all written, and I write gags into the videos where I say, and this isn't in the script, but I just want to say something, and then that's completely scripted. I'm reading it from a teleprompter.
Yeah.
Because I don't know. I think that.
I think it offers a humanity to it all, because the beautiful thing about YouTube is that, unlike TV, it makes almost all of its audience feel, at least at some level, that they can do it too. And when you get an experience like that where, I don't know, scripted or not, mistakes happening and you owning them, it's very it kind of connects with people watching stuff on YouTube who like that rawness and go, he's not a big budget Hollywood guy, he's just like me type. It does make it more relatable, I think.
Yeah, I think that's actually a really good way to look at it. I think that, so like, one aspect of pretty much all of my favorite movies and favorite music, almost none of the ones that I actually mentioned now, but I've found this through line, which is that I love lo-fi music, and I'm not talking about lo-fi like hip-hop beats with a vinyl crackle added onto it. I'm talking 4-track cassette recorders and DIY culture stuff. And I love found footage movies, especially ones made on like zero budget. And all of the media that I in my life have enjoyed, like Daniel Johnston when it comes to music, Kevin Smith with Clerks. There's this found footage series called The Black Hole Ghost that's just made by this one dude, and all of that.
Did you like Trailer Park Boys?
Yes, in the beginning.
Yeah, it's kind of not found footage, but it was part of that faux documentary.
Yeah, and in the beginning, it also felt as if they were actually operating on like no budget making that.
Yeah.
And all types of media that kind of have like that vibe has like a hundreds of % increased chance of me being super into it, because when I watch it and I go, I can see how this is made. I don't see that as a flaw. Like, I see that as a strength. It's like the most inspiring shit to me. When I go and watch just take Birdman, for example, and put that next to the other movie I mentioned, Spotlight, which is, you know, more of like a classical drama of journalists in an office, and Mark Ruffalo is in it or whatever. That was also a great movie. It didn't stick with me, and then you put that next to Birdman, where you can sense when the camera operator is taking a step, because the camera goes like this, and I'm like, oh, now you can see, now he's walking down the stairs here, or like here, why is he starting to back up? Oh, probably because another person is gonna like walk by, and I can feel the tactility of how it was made, and I can start piecing it together. And when the soundtrack has these drums, and then it pans over, and we suddenly see the guy playing the drums, and I'm like, that's so fucking sick. I love that. And I'm the type of person that, like, when I'm watching movies with my girlfriend, I keep like pausing it, kind of talking about, how do you think they achieved that? Or I'm like, I have an idea for how they went about this. So what do you think about this? And being able to like get how something was put together makes it more interesting to me than it being this polished thing that I can't. It's just presented to me as like a ready-made like microwave meal, and everything is all perfectly packaged in there. There are good movies that are like that, but in general, I won't resonate with it as much. So I guess there's something to that I also try to bring into what I do myself.
Yeah,
in a sense.
Have you just remarking on your love for found footage? There's a really cool little thing about found footage films. Do you know? I mean, it's not a found footage film, but the first example of it where the budget was so incredibly low that. So I'm comparing budget for the film being made to eventual box office money being made.
Blair Witch Project?
Blair Witch Project had the record, which it took from Halloween. The reason Halloween, I find it interesting. It's horror that seems to do it, right? Because it's generally low budget when it starts. But Halloween was the first to kind of have a huge record. Then Blair Witch, and then it was Paranormal Activity, which was, I think Paranormal Activity cost $20,000 to make, and made hundreds of millions.
Also, like, first Paranormal Activity is probably the scariest movie I've ever seen.
I agree. I completely agree. The first time I watched that film was alone in my flat, which I used to live with my friends. I don't know why, but I watched it on a small laptop screen in the dark, so the only light was Paranormal Activity. I was a grown man at the time, and I was genuinely frightened by that. Fucking
I've seen
film.
I've had like a sort of like a goal. Me and my girlfriend have had this goal to essentially, which is, you know, it's unreachable, of course, but to see every found footage movie. So we'll have like a period of a few months where all we do is watch found. Then we'll take a bit of a break, but then we always get back to it. We must have seen hundreds at this point, and nothing really in terms of like actually getting to me. Nothing comes close to the first Paranormal Activity. I think that like Blair Witch Project is a better movie. I prefer Blair Witch if I'm gonna like compare them. But in terms of just like raw terrifying me to my core, Paranormal Activity 1 got me real fucking good.
Same. Yeah, same. It felt very real. The scariest moment of Blair Witch is actually the end for me, where the boy is stood in the corner. There was that whole myth about the witch making them stand in the corner or whatever. Yeah. And when they eventually go to the house, the thing that stuck with me, I just got shivers over the back of my neck thinking about it, actually. The camera kind of falls down. You can just see him stood in the corner, and then all you're left with is like a weird kind of wailing / crying. Such a beautifully designed like final scene.
Do you know that my first YouTube video is about this scene?
I didn't know that. Is it really?
My first YouTube video is called like the audio design of the Blair Witch Project is fascinating, something like that. And it's about this exact scene, and exactly what you're describing is what it's about, because there's an aspect to it. I'm not going to go into it too deep now, but I kind of need to bring it up now. So the most fascinating aspect about that ending to me, from like a, and this is a perfect example of being able to see how shit is made, right? So they're filming it on 2 cameras, and one of them is sort of like, it's a high-8 tape-based camcorder, and the other one is a 16mm film camera that shoots in black and white, that has very crisp, good like filmic quality to it. But as the thing is often with 16mm film is that doesn't record any audio. It's just video. And then they used to, earlier in the movie, they had the audio guy who's recording on the DAC, and he's got like the boom mic, all that. So as we get into this final scene, they're filming on both cameras, and they cut like between them visually, but the audio is only coming from the camcorder that I think she has. Yeah, she has the camcorder. And no, the opposite. She has the fucking black and white film camera, sorry. And what happens is they get separated. He goes down into the basement with the tape recorder, with the camera that actually records audio, sees the dude in the corner. Camera falls to the floor. And then we cut to the black and white camera, which she is holding. She is now alone. But the audio is coming from the basement room. That's where the microphone is laying, because she has a camera that's not recording audio. And this fascinates me to no end, because we cut to her point of view, like 1 floor away, and we hear her scream his name. She's screaming for him. But we're not hearing it like how we would usually hear someone filming something. We hear her as if she's far away, despite like seeing it from her point of view, if that makes sense. And as she's going down the stairs, the closer she gets to the basement, the louder we can hear her. So, like, subconsciously, as an audience member, we're able to, like a sonar, we know when she's getting closer to where he met his end.
His fate, yeah. Wow.
And it is like such a and I've never seen anyone talk about it. It's such a fascinating choice to make, because it's also kind of complex, right? It is basic, but yeah, when I start explaining it, I find myself having to like try and be as clear as possible to what I'm saying. Like the audio is disconnected, and for someone who doesn't do like a lot of editing, it might be a bit like hard to still like wrap your head around what that means to hear the audio from another room than what we're seeing. But it gives you this insanely disconnected feeling that then grows more and more, less and less disconnected. Like it comes together slowly up until the very last moment when she's in the room with him, and she's actually screaming his like name, and the audio and video finally like meets and syncs up, and it's like this. It's like a rising shepherd's tone of visuals. It's amazing.
And it crescendos with her being hit or whatever, right? And then the camera falls down. So it all comes to this big meeting point. Amazing. I haven't watched it in a while, but I've got a reason to now, because the way you've explained that. And today, like, what a clever, brilliant idea. Like, it was also like pre-viral internet marketing was even, wasn't even possible, and they managed to create a viral marketing campaign based entirely on this found footage. But yeah, a real stroke of genius, Blair Witch. Huge respect for it. Absolutely incredible. So one thing I wanted to ask you about is the level of production and design that you have on your videos. As someone who's dabbled in video editing, and I had a conversation with Jamrock Hobo, who agreed that, and I think I've said to you anyway myself, I've gushed over it enough in DMs and stuff, but I came away after watching your Disco Elysium video in particular, just like, well, that's the bar. I was like, I was like, everything that I've been doing, I was like, it just isn't even a fraction as good as it is, to be honest. I was like, fuck. I was like, is that what you can do? I was like, if you put your mind to it, that's what you can do. But to bring myself back on point, I wanted to ask you how you got there. I will reference back to part of your Disco Elysium video, just as an origin point. And I know you've talked about your origin point already, but there was something that I expected you to mention actually in your story with Friedrich, which you mentioned in your Disco Elysium video. And something that stuck out to me was while he was spray painting his name in graffiti, you had a shitty little camera. And I was like, that's a nice little seed there that was planted in Jeff's life. So I'm just curious how you go from the kid with the camera fucking about with his friend to someone who is able to put together and produce. And if I can add something else in there, and I know I'm making my questions long here, Jeff, so sorry, but you also had enough faith in your ability to do video production that you left your job to pursue 2 years as doing this. Like, you must have had enough in the tank that you really felt. So just journey from camera to being confident enough to do that kind of production for YouTube.
Sure. I think it harkens back partly to what I was saying earlier about how just doing so while I think it's like a fair analysis to say that like you must have felt that you had like enough in you to feel that you could quit your job. But I also think that if I had thought of it that way, I wouldn't have quit my job, because I'd been like, well, I mean, how many ideas do I even have at this point? And I would have looked down to my like scattered notes, and I've been like, I have like two ideas, 1.5. Like, I'm supposed to like come up with a new one of these every month. Like that's, I'll never be able to do that. So I think that I don't quite think I've had the like the confidence that I'll be able to do, other than the fact that I like technically I'm like I can pull off some what I would consider as like semi-professional editing, and that is just from fucking always doing it. Like those dudes that were Is my cat? Can you hear my cat in the background? I wonder if that's gonna be picked up. She's fucking screaming.
Is he annoyed because outside of the room?
Yeah, I shut her out, and she's not a fan of that. Hopefully it's not coming through too much on the like over Discord. You probably don't hear it, but it might be there in the recording. Sorry. Those dudes that like had their fucking electric guitar when you were 11 and were playing Smoke on the Water, and then when they were 15 they were playing Through the Fire and the Flames, and they were just fucking always, they had their guitar and they got real fucking good at it, and you were always like, why didn't I do that? It's just kind of been in the same way. I had like some sort of obsession with videos, with cameras, with everything from, you know, starting all the way back with like, you know, Jackass and MTV in general.
Of course, I forgot about that TV show's influence on home camera purchasing, right? Because everybody felt that they could hurt themselves in the name of getting some money from MTV, right? I remember that whole fad. Yeah,
and I referenced this in another video, that I have this like unfinished script laying about that I'm gonna do something with someday, which is essentially like a retrospective on the cultural importance of like what I think that like Jackass and such like TV stupid early 2000s sort of indie production TV, what that the cultural impact that has had on there's so many people. The fucking dev of Animal Well said in an interview I saw with him last week that he started being interested in video, and that started with him and his buddies having a camcorder and filming Jackass type shit. And I hear it so often, and still it is like dismissed as this just like fucking, it's just like boys doing boy shit, jumping off of roofs and shit. And like it is in a sense, but I also think that was, so let's say that you're not a kid that envisions himself an artist. You're not maybe from that type of family, that type of background. You don't see yourself as like, I'm gonna be a director. You're working class, whatever, you know. And then you see these like dudes on MTV that got their fucking camcorders. They're doing stupid shit. They're filming it. They're laughing, but it's also like edited with music, sometimes effects, and it's like it's got some type. And you're like, I want to do that. And suddenly, you've carried around like a camera for 10 years. You've learned Windows Movie Maker, and you've moved on to Sony Vegas, and you've moved on hopefully to Premiere or DaVinci, and that is like very simplified, because I actually went and studied film for a bit, but I would say that like most of what I learned from studying film is stuff I have never used and will never use. There is some like basic stuff that I learned that I of course carry with me, but in general, I mostly studied film because it's fun to hang out with other people that like filming shit, and most of it comes from fucking always filming with my friends, not necessarily like Jackass type shit, that died out pretty quickly, but everything from like skits to little short films to sometimes just, you know, maybe you go out, do something, and then you edit down a little montage with some music and some color grading, and eventually like it all adds up to this like, oh, I can kind of do the baseline of what it means to quote unquote make a movie. And then if you're in the 2010s or 2020s, you probably don't think I have what it takes to make a movie. You think I have what it takes to make a YouTube video, and then that's the easiest place to kind of apply that knowledge, I think.
Yeah, path of least resistance.
Yeah.
You made a good point earlier. Actually, the decision to make a YouTube channel is the easy bit. Actually knowing why you did it in the first place and what you're going to do is probably the challenge, which I think is evident. I mean, these stats get flown around a lot. I'm, you know, a vanishingly small channel in terms of viewership and subscribers, but I'm still in the top 11% of YouTube channels or something silly like that. And
is that true? I didn't know that. That's
yeah. I think if you've managed to break into the 1,000 and above subscribers, you're in something like the top 30% of YouTubers or something daft like that.
I wanna counter that with another statistic that I find really interesting, and it's not, I'm pulling this straight out of my ass, but it's from something I heard a few years ago now, which is this thing that the biggest reason, I think this was about podcasts, which is, I mean, a bit apropos, I guess, but like the biggest reason why stuff fails is because people fail to stick to it. They feel, I didn't get the numbers I was expecting, I didn't this or that, and so they stop doing it, and hence like the best reason to succeed at anything is to be persistent, which is like, in a way, it's like, so like, yeah, of course, like you've heard that 1,000 times, but like I truly, really think that there's something so important about like, if you know what you're doing is at least not shit. If you're unsure if it's shit, then I would like reevaluate a little bit what you're doing and change your approach. But if you're like, what I'm doing is pretty good, like it might not be the best, but this is pretty good. This is like, I know that this isn't like absolutely terrible, then you gotta fucking keep doing it. And you can't be, and it's easier said than done, but like you can't be too hung up on when it doesn't go the way that you want. And whenever you're done with something, you gotta like pretty much immediately do the next thing, and not put too much thought into like because your job is done. This is something I feel passionately about, and I just heard my voice change tone there when I said it. But like, as an artist, as a creator, like your job is done the second it's out. Cool, like you did your part. Other people will analyze it. Other people will have opinions on it. You don't have to do that. So like, once it's out, you're done with it. It's okay to go back and like go over old stuff, and you're gonna learn shit from it. That's like a very important part. But like, you're done with it. You're done. What are you doing now? It doesn't matter what you just did. What's next? And if you keep doing that, as long as it's not absolute garbage, you're gonna find, I think at least, some level of success most of the time.
Yeah, well said. Well said. And to just kind of put a mirror onto my own experience, I'm only a 2-year-old. In fact, I don't even think it's 2 years yet. 18 months or something like that.
You're doing fucking good for being... I was doing 2.5 years or something of like monthly high effort uploads with nothing.
Yeah, and I am guilty of being a baby about it though, to be honest, because I know the audience size, because I see it across YouTube. So I do sometimes feel aggrieved, but then to your point, your perspective has to be a little bit better. I'm very new, and I often forget that because I don't feel new anymore because of the way that things have gone recently. It feels, I feel like part of the furniture, and for some reason I think that I should, I expect certain things to come as a result. But actually, I think the first year I grew 1,000, where you hit that threshold, but then the last however long, it's grown by something like 8,000. And
hey, you're almost at 10,000 subscribers.
Yeah.
I'd say that is a pretty fucking good trajectory. Like 2 years, you've reached that, like you said yourself, you reached like the top 11th percentile, and yeah, man, I keep coming back to this in my personal life as well, but just like how fucking tired. We don't even have to really get into it, but like how tiring and exhausting and scary and emotionally draining it is to have literally every single step of your passion be judged by numerical statistics, and it is fucking impossible to be creative within those like restraints. So like, yeah, it's the, first of all, it's very unsolicited here advice, but also it's been said a million times before, but like, the numbers, they gotta go, man. Like, you can't. It's gonna fucking kill you. Take it from me, man.
Agreed. Yeah, it's just not. It's also the wrong things to be motivated by. It's just like, and I had this discussion many times with creatives, and the good ones always say the same things, right? And I always find it interesting that you have a similar sentiment to Jamrock Hobo, actually, in what you put out there, and it's a desire to communicate something, whatever it is.
Yeah,
you feel like you want to say that thing, and so you put it out there, and it doesn't really get any more complicated than that. And I really like what you said about once it's out there, you're done with it, because the energy that you've already spent on, and you and I are both know, when you really put the effort in, and I have done now, and believe it or not, to a certain degree, like I have written stuff, so I can't imagine, like, why would you continue to allow another 3 months of your energy to be assigned to that thing when you already know you bust your balls for it? And yeah, you're right, you just got to kind of move on to the next thing.
Yeah, which is why, like, if you're doing it for the numbers, you're gonna find it's hard to be persistent. Like,
yeah,
because if that's like the equation in your head, is like, I do the effort and then I get the numbers, but then you don't get the numbers, then why would you do the effort again? Last thing I'll say on this, because I know this is like, it gets a bit inside baseball when like a lot of people don't like They don't have their own YouTube, or they don't care about this shit.
You
But
give a
like,
shit, yeah.
what I like to do with because this applies to everything, but maybe specifically YouTube. I try my absolute best to not, if you're gonna have to look at numbers at some point. Like you're gonna have to take in the statistics. Like I can say all I want, but like you gotta stop caring about the numbers. But the unfortunate truth is that you have to care to some degree, and you're gonna care whether you want it or not to some degree. And I think that a very good way that I've found, at least, is that I try to look at blocks of time or of content rather than individual pieces. So instead of being like, this video sucked, this video was like fine, and this video was great, then I might look at that 6 month period of time where I released all of those, and one did amazing, one did terribly. Overall, on like 100% scale, I did like about a good 75%. Like this was a good period of time. And it evens everything out, and it like you get less hard hits, and it's less often as well. Preferably, I haven't been going quite long enough to be able to do. I've only been at it for like 3 or something years, but preferably I'd like to look at a whole year to just go like, how did everything go this year? And that way, if I fucked up at some point, that's nothing. If I did a shit video, okay, like that's one out of however many you make in a year.
Yeah.
And it softens the blow so much. It's my biggest recommendation, I think.
Yeah, think more about your portfolio as a whole rather than screwing yourself over one video. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and you still get like the opportunity, like, because if you don't look at it at all, then you never, maybe you don't improve, maybe you don't learn from your mistakes, whatever. So you still get like I look at what I've done, I try to see what could I have done better, whatever, but it's just, you stop applying it to such a minute scale, and you get it as more of like a big picture stuff.
Yeah.
Overall this year, I gained. So if you were to look at overall this year, I got 8,000 subscribers, rather than for the last 2 videos, I've only gotten 25 new subscribers. Then that's going to feel a whole lot better.
Yeah, damn right. Yeah, very good advice. Very good advice. All right, so we're going to stay on YouTube, but we're going to meld it into disco now. You did a video recently. I guess I'm going with the title, I Don't Want to Be This Kind of Animal Anymore, which I think is certainly what you had on your splash, right?
It's the like intended title,
yeah. Before I go too much into asking you a question on that, I want to point out that I noticed that there's a running gag. I don't know whether it's an intentional running gag actually, but I did find it quite amusing that your Saw, when you first talk about the first Saw film, and you talk about the fact that they open the bag and it's got a saw in, and you just look at the camera and you're like, hey, that's the name of the movie. And you do it again in I Don't Want to Be This Type of Animal Anymore. And I thought it was hilarious that again, going back to your fourth wall breaking, you did it the first time and I was like, oh yeah, that's his thing. And then you did it the second time. Was it the second time or third time where you made your head explode?
It's probably the second or third.
Yeah. Just thought that was very funny.
I think I found like there's a lot of little things like that will be like a through line in many of my videos, but that I don't expect it to be something that anyone will recognize and be like, oh, what a, like, that's the inside joke of the channel or anything. It's honestly probably just a sign that like I find that joke funny, so I will repeat it as many times as I can get away with, because if it works, why just use it once, kind of? Mm-hmm. And I think there's something, I agree. I think there's something amusing about the whole, like, yo, hold on, isn't that the fucking thing we're talking about?
Yeah, very funny. Because it's also a very silly thing that films and TV do anyway. You know, any moment the name of the film is said out loud, and you're like, come on. It's very, very funny. My question is then, first of all, so your YouTube channel generally has a kind of focus on lots of cinematic stuff, and there's sprinkles of meme stuff and internet culture stuff. If I'm not mistaken, this is the first video that you've done on a video game, yes?
Pretty much, yeah, I think so.
Yeah? Okay. So my question is, first of all, why Disco Elysium, and why did you not want to be this type of animal anymore? Where did that idea come from to do that video?
Well, as I said, I feel like I've been out of gaming for a bit, and I've been sticking through whatever like online experiences I've been able to have with my friends, everything from like fucking, again, like Counter-Strike, but like Fortnite, Phasmophobia, whatever online thing is like currently catching my friends' attention, then I'm there, because I just kind of like hanging out and playing video games. But I have been meaning to experience all of Disco Elysium. I started it a few years ago, and I made a mistake of trying to do it on stream. And it is like, I probably had, I don't know, a handful, like 4 or 5 streams of several hours each. And I mean, we never got to the end of the first day, because it's already sort of a slow game. And then adding on to that you're kind of on stream, so you're kind of making sure to listen through the entire sentence every time, and then read the replies out loud, and then be like, which one should I pick, guys? It just adds like yet another layer of it being so slow. So that resulted in my ADHD riddled brain just kind of going like, get out. And I stopped. But I've been meaning to get back to it. So I think it just happened that my girlfriend actually, she had played through the same way. She had played through like just the beginning. And so like maybe a year ago now, or a bit less, she on her own, which I've held against her, started just playing through it. And I was like, what the fuck? And I didn't find out until she was like more than halfway through. And I'm like, you couldn't have told me? You're like, I just wanted to casually play something. And I'm like, yeah, but this, you played this? I want to play this. So she kind of played through all of it, except for, I think she like got to the island, but she never talked to the guy, to the deserter. I think something like that. She got to like the very end, and she didn't finish it, and was like, okay, let's just play it together. So then we like started it over, and I actually sat down and played through it. And it was both the first game, like full single player campaign that I played in a long time, but also probably the most impactful one that I've, like, I'd compare it to The Last of Us, but this like resonated with me way more, and so it was just, my channel is, like I said, it's just like whatever the fuck I'm feeling at the moment, whatever I'm into, and I felt that like this is the only thing on my mind right now, so I guess I have no other choice than to start like delving into why and writing this long ass script about it.
Well, I'm going to have to touch now on that experience with your girlfriend. Obviously, she was going into it slightly less blind, but is there anything that kind of you can tell us about that first playthrough? How was that as an experience? Because I haven't come across many people who do it with a partner. I think one other person I'm aware of in the comments had said it, but just tell us about that experience, because obviously Disco Elysium is a very emotionally driven, well-written game about all kinds of elements of the human psyche, and to experience that with the woman you love must have been interesting. So tell me about that.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't recommend it if you've just started dating. It's not, if you're in the honeymoon phase, I'd probably avoid Disco Elysium as like a couch co-op game. But if you're comfortable with each other, if you're at a point where you kind of know what makes the other one tick, and if you've got that, I don't know, fucking deep connection or something, whatever it is that makes you know that it's working out, then I like really recommend it. It's great because you've got different things that'll make you, as you know, like Disco Elysium has so much shit in it that speaks to so many different experiences. So you'll probably both find different things that you care about, or different sort of analysis of the situation, or different ideas of who Harry is or how Harry is. And I actually think, like, of course I'm biased because that's essentially how I experienced it at first. But I actually think that, like, if you have not played through Disco Elysium with someone else, then there's probably pretty large, like, chunks of there's a lot of things that you've probably not thought of, you know? You can read so many comments and you can read so many other people's analysis, but, like, sitting down and real time experiencing things and then hearing the other person having, like, a completely different interpretation of, like, the dialogue you're into, and they're like, you should go with option 2, and you're like, what the why the fuck would I say that? And it's like, because he said that he was going to build a youth center, and you're like, but he's a good guy, he's just. And then it's I mean, I had this conversation with her the other day when we were talking about Everard and Joyce, and like, who's a good guy, who's a bad guy, even though none of them are either technically, I think. But and you have that, like, the gut feeling that Everard is essentially a bad guy. He's like a video game boss, and Joyce is helping you, giving you a lot of information, so she's like a good person. And then in my opinion, and, you know, take it easy in the comment section, but in my opinion, it's like the exact kind of opposite. I think that Everard in many ways is a very, like, human character. I mean, they're all complex and none of them are like definitely
everything's grey, right?
Yeah. So it's not like no he's he's completely fine and she's an asshole. But I think from my perspective, you kind of find out throughout the game that the way they are presented is sort of the opposite of how they actually are on some sort of, like, moralic scale. That, like, he is presented as, like, you're meant to hate him on your first playthrough. It's like he's this asshole guy, and it's kind of like, I think your gun is cold, Harry, and it's all that fucking
good impression. It's pretty good.
You've got a great one. I heard, like, I don't remember what fucking episode it was when you were talking to someone and you kind of did, like, a short, and I was like, hell yeah, dude, like, that you nailed it. But and then you talked, no, me neither. But and you talked to Joyce, and she, on the other hand, is so, like, she helps you. She's sort of like the fucking whatever the little thing in Zelda is that goes like, hey, listen, and just fucking tells you all the information that you need to know, and makes you go, yeah, bad guy, and she's good. And then you kind of find out it's the exact opposite.
Are you aware of the discourse that's been, sorry to interrupt you there, but the discourse around Joyce that's been on, you know, the Disco Elysium subreddit has been nothing but Joyce arguments for the last week? Are you aware of that?
Not for the last week, but I've seen before that. I've seen some opinion havers have some pretty, like, flat analysis of it, where it's just like, either people go like, no, she's not at fault, she's a worker too, and then some other people are like, she's literally Hitler, and I'm like, I don't think it's either.
yeah, no, absolutely. Were you finished on your point now? I interrupted you, sorry.
No problem. I probably took a detour, but I think my point was that we had that conversation just this week, even though we've probably spent hundreds of hours talking about Disco Elysium, and still we kind of got back to that discussion this week of her being like, no, but he's like a dickhead, and I'm like, is he though? Mm-hmm. Like, and yeah, I recommend, like, sitting through the game with someone else if you haven't. It's like, if nothing else, a good reason to replay it to anyone who's played it before, because, like, yeah, there's so much in it that just doing it with someone else, they'll have a different perspective. And as long as it's someone that you're, like, comfortable with and also open to, like, discussing heavy shit with, then you're gonna probably get a lot out of it that you wouldn't otherwise.
It would go over way over Katie's head, to be honest. I'd be like, she won't mind me saying this, but it'd be a waste of time. So I need to find so the video itself, I mean, we can get into the Disco Elysium stuff in a little bit, but the thing that I really took from this and why I felt it was. I mean, there are a couple of reasons, to be honest, why I feel it's like a new standard for a Disco Elysium video essay content, whatever. Well, first of all, obviously the production, which I've gushed over enough, right? There are certain elements of the video which I do want to highlight, but what for me it was one of the most personal feeling Disco Elysium video essays that I think I've ever seen. It's not often actually people address a lot of the very personal things that resonated with them or why Disco Elysium worked for them. So I want to touch first of all on, I've already mentioned the Friedrich story. I remember watching it and I thought you were building up to him taking his own life, because of the way that it was. I was like, okay, this is going somewhere, but actually turns out that he took someone else's life, and very poignantly, the fact that it had occurred in some closeness to where you'd both kind of been together and filmed him doing the graffiti. So, I mean, first of all, thank you for being as personal with that as you were. It can't have been easy. Let me think how I'm asking this. Again, it comes back to wondering why you felt compelled to include such personal elements of your own life in such a video, and why the Friedrich story in particular was one that you elected to include in the video.
So I think that the like autobiographical sort of like anecdotal stuff kind of felt just natural to put in, just because of like the whole idea, I guess, as I started writing it, was to sort of thematically connect like events from my life with events from the game.
They talked about his addiction, right? Well, you didn't allude to what the addiction was, but you had a great line where, I don't know, you said you went off to do something, and you found love, was it, or something like that, and he found an addiction, because you kind of drifted. Yeah. I'm paraphrasing, obviously I haven't got it quite right, but that particular element stuck out to me as well, for obvious reasons.
Yeah, I think it's just like so much, and to be fair, like Disco Elysium makes it very easy. I feel like you could take fucking any anecdote out of anyone's life, and then just find which part of Disco Elysium does this thematically connect to, and then just slot it in there. Like, it's a bit of a magic trick. It's a sleight of hand thing where you might feel now I'm really like, what's it called? I'm really revealing the inner workings of this, pulling down the curtain or whatever. But it's a bit of sleight of hand because there is so much content in this game. Like, I knew I wanted I kind of knew which anecdotes, not all of them, but I knew that I wanted to talk about Frederick before I knew where in the video exactly it'd go.
Okay.
And it kind of all came together once I realized that I had the follow-up anecdote of meeting someone else much later in my life that was kind of connected to the events. And then I was like, oh, and that's sort of like how the working class woman and the this and the that, and then it goes together. So Disco Elysium makes that very easy to thematically connect anything, which is again the reason why if you've been smitten by the Disco Elysium curse of like the brain bug that it gives you, where it's like it becomes sort of like you're the only piece of, you act as if it's the only video game you've ever played once you've played it, and you start saying, that's sort of like in Disco Elysium when you see some shit out in real life. That's the exact same phenomenon. I think it's just so easy to connect anything to it. You hear of, someone mentions a communist, and you're like in Disco Elysium, I get it.
Yeah.
Or there's a murder, or there's a fucking anything, and you're, yeah, I know of this from Disco Elysium.
Well, it's quite. I just as an aside, you illustrated that beautifully in your video where you were at some sort of recycling machine, right? And it cuts to you just going, Disco Elysium reference. I remember when you sent me that clip, it was one of the things that made me laugh the most, because it's become absurd with Disco Elysium in particular now. Like, people, it actually makes me angry how much people just go, oh, like there's a fucking one grey cloud. Oh, that's just like Disco Elysium, right? Or
well,
just
it gets worse because like you've got, and I mean, shots fired, but they're used to it. Americans will see anything from Europe, and they'll be like, "Fucking, that's a Disco Elysium thing," and you're like, "No, that's where we shop. It's normal."
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I just wanted to praise you. Just going back to the Frederick story and the inclusion of that, and where I was hoping, and you kind of actually really alluded to it already, is that tragic circumstances and even heroic circumstances, I do find it fascinating how every single one of those stories starts with something really innocuous. And I think you captured that really well when you talk about Frederick, because I was like, the journey you go on, and I love the parallel that you give with a working class woman, because that does start off where you think Harry's being absolutely just classic cockatoo. What is he doing here? And it never feels like it's ever going to amount to something as impactful as that. And you did exactly the same with your story. Like I was like, I'll give you a flavour for where I was, and maybe the audience agree, but it was like I had this lovely, warm, nostalgic feeling when you talked about cigarettes and the market value of the black one. I can't remember what the actual brand name was. And your two cigarettes in white shirts and orange pants, whatever it is you said. And I got all of these lovely little, because I remember what it was like when people would call out to reserve sections of a cigarette in school, like, because cigarettes was such a like, can you save me twos? Well, like, you get half of it, and then it would just get ridiculous down to like, can you save me the lettering, please? It was insane, and I was just like really kind of on that journey with you, because I mean we're of a similar age, I guess that makes sense. But and then you did a very, very good job of gradually subverting my expectations in the same way that Disco Elysium did. And if I can give you as much praise as possible, I think that section of your video is the most Disco Elysium section of the video for that reason. Really resonated with me. I had a murder happen next door to where I lived many years ago when I was a teenager. Someone who I knew pretty well, and it just all hit, right? And I was like, man, what a journey, and what a beautiful way of putting it across. So I just wanted to gush over it a little bit, and thank you for putting together what I felt was like, and I think it's worth pointing out, we had lots of discussion leading up to you publishing your video, and a lot of the sneak peeks that you gave me were mostly hilarious, right? And I had this vision of the video being like this comedy wall-to-wall laughter bonanza, and to find out that I was going to experience something like that was really, really nice. So yeah, just huge praise and a thank you for that.
Yeah, well, I happy to hear it, and appreciate the candidness right back. It's funny you should mention it. I haven't thought of this in a long while, but I also lived at a place where someone in the same building got shot, kind of around the same time as the Frederick stuff. I haven't thought of that in a long while, but also like essentially a neighbor. Someone we had a pizza place in the same building as us, and someone fucking got shot in there, and like people don't. Well, now it's different in Sweden, but back then people didn't get shot in Sweden. Like that didn't happen, but it did. Like in my building, so I know that have a similar experience.
Yeah, it's pretty. It's surreal, isn't it? Completely surreal. I remember I was interviewed by the local paper. I think I was 16 at the time, so that's what 19 years ago. But the bus stop right outside my house, and then like the local paper were asking me about it and stuff. It was very strange.
I can give a little, just a quick about that like nostalgia thing, and the smoking of the cigarettes in the underpass next to the school and all of that.
Please do. Yep.
I don't know. A little production fact is that I went back all across Sweden to film. So this is the type of shit that no one knows and no one will ever notice. But there are shots of the underpass, which I went back to the actual underpass, exactly where we stood, and I filmed these like background angles. There's like a wide shot of it, and then there's 2 shots framed to either side to where we were standing at the time, like whatever, 15 years ago. So the backgrounds in that scene are all accurate. And when I talk about like I went to I was living at a friend's house for a few weeks or something, I mentioned at one point, and cuts to like there's this blue house. That is the actual house. I made sure to like go there and actually film the exact location. And there's even when Frederick is presented with like an edited video that I show him, and he goes like, "What's this fucking music you've got on here?" and something like that, he says. And as it like cuts to him, which is obviously like just me with like a black and white filter to make it clear who's talking, it's supposed to be him, the background changes into like the wall of a room, and that is the wall in the real room where that conversation took place. So I went to my friend's dad's Facebook and scrolled way back until I found a photo taken in that room that I could then like cut them out of and use the background. And the graffiti tags on the wall of the underpass that we talk about. So what I did was I bought spray paint, and I found a piece of wood, and I recreated his old tag from memory, and I brought it with me to the underpass. So we filmed like a shot of the underpass, and then we filmed a shot of me standing and holding this slab of wood up to the wall, and then I extracted the graffiti and tracked it onto the surface of the wall. So in the clips of the video, you'll see that the tag is there. Yeah. And at one point I say like it appeared on top of another of like a red graffiti that was there from before, or something like that. And that tag is also like, that one isn't historically accurate, but that's the tag of another friend of mine that I just also recreated from memory. And so there's these like, especially in that part, I had this like, I got like obsessed with the idea of accuracy for the visuals, to the point where I had to fucking drag my camera across country to get these 10-second clips to use in the backgrounds for all of those segments. So that is the location and all of the background clips. At the start of that segment, there's also some like I do an imitation of like a bully guy at school. Who the fuck are you, or whatever he says, and it cuts to a quick background of the actual like cafeteria of my old school that I had to find some 2007 YouTube upload and grab a still frame and upscale it and cut out all the people and shit like that. So it's just a little, I guess, production trivia.
Yeah, it's I love all that stuff, because I think maybe I'll resonate more with that than most, because there's lots of stuff that ends up in your videos that in the end is only for you, right? Or maybe like a very select group that are going to notice it. But it's amazing if someone does notice it. But yeah, that's like obviously very, very personal to you. No, amazing. Like the thing that was very apparent to me was the effort that you were making, the thought that you were putting into it. Like I know that some of the mad shit that you were doing to make like things work, like people really should go and appreciate your video, and I'm sure they look like they have. The community's responded really well to it, so I hope that continues because it deserves it. So, I mean, the game itself. I mean, the first thing to point out is your video is like a beautiful explainer now. I think I said this to you recently, that actually if you want some sort, like a lot of people are adverse to playing Disco Elysium because it's not the easy. If you're not like a traditional gamer TM, it's just so resistant to all of the tropes that you would expect going into a game that a lot of people kind of find themselves a bit gutted that they can't play and experience it. But your video now will serve to do a huge service to people in that category, I think, because you captured, the events of the game so well.
I hope that very specific subset of people that want to but won't, that's the people that I really want to watch it. Like the people that really want to play it but that won't. And if you really want to play it and you're gonna, then like play it first and then come back. But yeah, that's like one of the demographics that I'm hoping to hit, because I'd prefer if people experience the game before the video.
Of course. Your thumbnail is fucking fantastic, by the way. I quite often look at that with just complete awe. I really love the thumbnail.
Thank you.
And I'm just gonna pick out some other highlights of mine. So we've touched on Frederick. I think was a really personal story. I actually a big hats off to you being as open as you were about the Patreon situation and what this channel means to you. I think that's a really hard thing for anybody to do, and I think you some people will react and go fucking online grifters, which I hate, by the way. Like everyone wants something for fucking free. And
that came from the heart. That I could hear that came from a true place in you.
Yeah. So huge. I'm not going to dwell too much because I'll give you all of the time in the world to talk about and highlight your Patreon once we get through this bit. But huge respect for you for being as open as you were about that. But I just want to talk about some really funny stuff.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Let's get into the hilarity of the situation. Your Titus Hardie ally stuff was really funny, and just your whole section on the Hardie Boys was fantastic. You will of course know that I asked on your behalf which maniac had forced you into watching a 7-hour animation for Titus Hardie coming along. So I guess I'm curious where the Hardie Boys sit for you in your love of the game, because I did feel that there was quite a lot of love in that section, a lot of admiration for what was going on with the writing and stuff. So just can you talk to me a little bit about putting that particular part together?
Well, yeah, so I think I hadn't quite either. I don't remember if my original playthrough had that specific line from Titus where he goes like, you can be a little queer, but you're still a Hardie, or whatever the fuck he says, right?
Yeah. And have a great accent, by the way. You should do that more often. It's very good.
But I don't know if I got that in my original playthrough. So like the playthrough in the video is as close as possible that I could get to my original playthrough. But as you know, there's so many different dialogue, little changes here and there. So it did end up being a bit of an amalgamation. But as I was getting to that part in the editing, I was like, this bit is so good. I love that Hardie, the Titus is such a it's that I know you talked with someone else about this. I don't remember who now. Might have been Argo, but the like sort of like working class non-homophobia. The like
Yeah,
they're definitely not what Twitter would call woke, but they've got they're like, well, I don't care if you're this or that, as long as you can like fucking pull yourself up by the bootstrap. And there's something so endearing by people with good and intentions, with their heart in the right place, but that might not be completely down with like the lingo and completely down with they might not have spent like hours analyzing and yeah, I think the way I at some point in the video I mentioned that like when they start going into that, I'm like, suddenly the Hardie Boys is teaching a queer theory 101 seminar or some shit like that. And I really, really like, I appreciate that aspect of Titus so much, because it's like such an like underutilized trope in a way. I that type of interaction feels like something, you know, that I've had in my life, where it's like your fucking grandma or something just suddenly says something that is just so fucking based. It's so it's such a good like positive stance and take that you maybe didn't expect, because maybe they've had a history of saying something semi-racist every now and then because they're from some other generation, and you're like, god damn it, why are you saying that? And then suddenly they say something so good, and you realize that they just mean well. And a lot of the time, if like when it comes down to it, they have like somewhat good opinions. I mean, when it comes to that generation, there's gonna be some stuff that is never good. But and I mean, from talking to you, actually, I have also found that like the funniest moment in the entire game comes from talking to Titus, which like to me, like nothing comes close to how much I laughed. And I didn't even experience it in the game. I was like in the middle of making the video when I think you mentioned it, like, did you know that you can actually shoot yourself in front of them? Yeah. And I was like, no, I didn't actually. And I had to go to YouTube, I think it was to your channel, watching that scene through, and it it gets to the point to this day, like it is the funniest moment. This is the sort of thing that people say and it didn't actually happen, just like typing LOL while you sit there silently.
Just silently.
Yeah. But this is one of those things that, like, for real, I woke my girlfriend up because we're in bed, she's fallen asleep, I'm on my phone, and I get to the part where he says, I'm gonna kill myself now, you fucking whore, to Titus. And like, I cannot stop laughing, and I had to go back and I had to like, there is something, because that like Disco Elysium has it has like swears in it, and it deals with a lot of like real shit. And of course, you know, the analysis there that he is essentially saying this to Dolores and not to Titus, that's what he means when he says, you fucking whore, is absolutely there. But that's not like my interpretation of it. My interpretation of it, as I saw it, and that I would hold to this day, is that he's just like, he like retorts into this sort of 13-year-old mindset, where he's just like, he's being, they show him up so bad, and they're like, you won't do it, dude. You won't do it. Never. You'd never do it. And eventually he's just like on the verge of tears. I'm going to do it. I'm going to fucking kill myself now, you fucking whore. And then shoots himself. It is the funniest moment. So, I mean, other than my gripe with the animation speed of Titus getting up before you can talk to him every single time, I do hold everything Titus and Hardie Boys related, and it has a special place in my heart.
Yeah, they're a fantastic bunch, and I really loved that Argo's response to your complaint was to just laugh at you.
Yes, he broke out laughing. I was waiting for that part to come up. I was like, did he ask the question? And it got to it, and he just like burst out laughing, and I'm like, son of a
declaring,
bitch.
Yeah, that was me.
It's so good. I wouldn't have it at this point. I wouldn't have it any other way. Like, it wouldn't work unless every single time it looks like the circus left town, and it just goes on for fucking ever. Yeah, it's great.
Beautiful. Beautiful. The other thing that I really liked in your video, and there was lots of things, but obviously we can't talk about a 4-hour video the whole time. But your presentation of the Detective Cuno stuff, I thought was fantastic, because I know that wasn't something you experienced first time round, as many people don't. But the effort that you went to highlight it, I thought was fantastic. In particular, when he goes on his ranty speech, I thought the way you presented that was, honestly, I remember, like, I've obviously seen this stuff so many times, and that fresh coat of paint that you'd put on it, I was literally sat there laughing in hysterics at stuff that I'd already seen before, because you'd put a whole new, fresh kind of look on it. So yeah, tell us about your experience finding out about Cuno de Reuter, being a detective, and just your feelings on that particular outcome at the end of the game.
I mean, yeah, I think it's overall, like, it's great, and I mean, it was interesting finding out, like, I think I wish I had phrased it a bit differently in the video, because I keep talking about the, like, canonical and non-canonical, and then I've seen some people point out that, like, nothing is canonical, and I do agree with that, just because Argo kind of, like, clarified, hinted at, suggested that the potential sequel would maybe, again, reading between the lines, that that would kind of assume that you had Cuno with you at the end. Like, that doesn't, and obviously I don't think that, like, he implied this at all. It was more sort of how I phrased it, that I was like, well, the canonical ending is actually the Cuno ending, which I don't think it is. I think they're right when people say that there's, like, no such thing as a canonical ending. I like that is in the game. I don't remember right now. Is there a way to get both Cuno and Kim with you at the ending?
No, the only reason Cuno turns up is because you need a partner. Yeah. Towards the end, yeah. So that's, you can have none of them.
Yeah, I've been meaning to do a playthrough to get that.
Yeah.
That's my. I have a playthrough in mind that I haven't gotten to yet, because I've over the last 6 months I've played a lot. I want to do, like, the doing everything alone at the end, and a few other things that I want to investigate. But I think I think about that outro, his little outro speech. It's obviously amazing. I think it's very, very funny. And I don't toot my own horn that much, but I, like, once I placed down this, like, quasi hip hop beat as he's, like, delivering his speech, I was like, yeah, this is one of my favorite parts of the video. And, like, especially it hits so fucking different to hear him say, "You dinky fucking asshole," like, with the beat behind it. I think it's very funny every time.
Yeah, dinky fuckers. Yeah, what a fucking line. I've been live streaming the game recently, and
I've seen, yeah.
And no matter how many times I hear Cuno's dialogue, it's endlessly funny. And I remarked on it, actually, speaking to him, how fucking funny is Argo Tulik like,
holy shit.
Look at what he's written in that game. And I come away going, like, and I loved the start of the game, by the way. You made a real big point of highlighting just how long the credits were for this game. But there are definitely heroes in there, right? And certainly in the last few months, having realised how much of the stuff that I loved was by, in some way, shape or form, percentages can be argued over, it was Argo. Yeah. It gives me a lot
like
of...
your talks with Argo has, like... yeah, man, I'm idolizing that man at this point. Like, holy shit, I know a lot of people, and we're not gonna, like, actually go in and discuss the whole too much of the whole, like, drama thing for both of our mental health sake, but like, I know that a lot of people hold Kudovitz in extremely high regards, and of course I do too, in some way.
Yeah.
But Argo has like, yeah, man, like just I think I went into your videos. I've never been like that knowledgeable about all the behind the scenes stuff. All I've known is what most people know, like the legal stuff and this and that, you know.
Yeah.
But hearing him talk about like what he did and how he approached it, and I would, and I know you would too, like I would gush about this man for a long time. So extremely sympathetic and talented, and does not seem to quite understand the extent of how sympathetic he comes across and how fucking talented he is. Like I'm blown away by that man, truly.
Yeah, that was the thing that I come away from above all else, actually, was like, this guy has no idea.
Yeah.
Something about that complete lack of awareness that makes you instantly endearing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, yeah, love the guy. Absolutely love the guy.
Yeah, I can't wait to see whatever the fuck whatever jars he puts his hands into going forward. I'm eagerly awaiting it, probably more than any other name involved as of right now.
Same, yeah. I'm gonna ask you some like very disco specific questions, but just on your video, I want to highlight a couple of things which I think people need to know, like lifting the hood off a little bit, and I just want to highlight again just how fucking talented you are and how much you've done to help me on the back of some of this stuff. So I mean, honestly, it's fucking mad what you've done, some of the stuff. People will not know that you did your own rendition of Smallest Church in that video.
No, I mean, I don't really like highlight it, but the cover at the end.
I know. I'm doing it for you now, Jeff.
But it is. I will say that it is mentioned in the intro of the video. It says like outro and intro, and it's mentioned there. But yeah.
You were being as humble as you possibly could be, whilst also making it, known. You created the fonts by yourself. So the graffiti wall font Jeff created, and was very kind enough to share to me. And I have used it once and once only, and that was to put on a wall Tony Sarville as a financial criminal.
Yeah, I saw that. And I was like, I recognize this font.
I deliberately didn't credit you, actually, because I was like, do I want to Jeff's name on this? So I was like, if someone asks, I'll tell them. But I was like,
I want to get those up somewhere. Someone in the comments of this, some real Elysium head that sits through however many hours of this there is, could tell me where I should. I got two fonts, one based on the Something Beautiful is Gonna Happen text, and one based on Cindy's graffiti on the ground. I've like extracted and whatever characters were missing, I kind of tried to recreate to the best of my ability. And those two fonts, I have them and I want to put them somewhere. Honestly, if I remember to do it, they'll be on my website. I try to like put things up there. So I'll try to remember to do that, and they should be there. Anyone to use. I don't have any like legal knowledge, but I'm declaring here that they're Creative Commons or something. Do whatever you want with them. Use them for whatever.
Yeah. And one thing which I think you deserve huge credit for, that I don't know whether you used it in the end, but you, like an absolute madman, you were mapping out a super ridiculously high resolution image of the entire game. Yeah. I remember you sharing a file with me at some point, and you were kind of like, look, I'm fucking done doing it. Like, if you and some other mad disco people want to carry on, by all means. But yeah, did you? Because I'll give you a clue as to where I think you did use it. There's quite a long zoom in to the map, right at the beginning, right where you get to Something Beautiful is going to happen. So yeah, how much use did you get out of that in the end?
Yeah, so that shot that goes from seeing I think to like almost like to the canal de passing.
That's
over
right,
the
yeah.
water, and then it goes all the way in to the text. That is one point where I used it, and then I think there is one more use of it. Almost that same area. There's like a shot that kind of goes up the street towards Frittes.
Yeah.
And there I kind of masked out the whirling in rags sign so I could make it have like a neon glow that flickers a bit so that you don't think of the fact that you're actually just looking at a still image. And I added the fake snow overlay.
Mm-hmm.
For any aspiring editors out there, the CC snowfall effect in After Effects can be kind of well adjusted to fit with the Disco Elysium snow. So if you have a CC rainfall too, for that matter, both of those can be used on the Disco Elysium footage if you have a scene that's not raining and you want it to rain. Which for that entire intro sequence, like none of those scenes were like snow, or like maybe one or two, but none of those were like snowy, and I had to essentially add that in the editing. So that's but yeah, I was going through trying to take full 2K resolution screenshots of each area of the game and piece them together into this. I mean, it would end up being something like 50,000 by 75,000 pixels if I actually finish the whole thing, which I haven't quite, but I've gotten a, but you know, it's a painfully tedious process if anyone wants to take over and try doing it. Because I mean, if you were to extract all the game files, I bet you could do this in a better way. I've been using the shitty collage mode, which has these
it has like the overlay that you can't get rid of, right? The felt.
So what I have to do is like I save down, let's say somewhere between like 10 and 50 screenshots, and then I bring them all in to Photoshop, and then on one of them I paint out on like an adjustment layer, a layer mask. Paint out all of the unnecessary shit, and then apply the same layer mask to all the layers, since the problematic like overlays is in the same place. And then it's just a matter of starting to fucking one by one piece them together. And once you go over like 15,000 pixels in resolution, Photoshop isn't happy with you, so it's very, very slow. But I still have the Photoshop project. I intend to finish it at some point, but if someone else want to do it first, then please do it. Rid me of this curse.
Yeah, absolutely. It certainly seemed far too daunting for me, to be honest. Plus, I think my computer would not really handle it. I'm on like a what am I on? 3090, I think. So I'm probably due to get something different soon. One other thing I want to point out before I ask the very disco questions is that White Morning, a thought cabinet solution, is not voiced, and you are the only person to have that. That's quite cool. How did you do it? Because there'll be people who would love to accuse you of using an AI level voice, but that's not the case, is it?
Yeah, so I've uploaded it as a separate upload on my second channel for anyone that wants to actually, go and listen to it. So if you search just White Morning Disco Elysium, you should find it, but otherwise the channel is Extra Jeff. I have uploaded it there, and I did, because I didn't want people to think I used an AI. I did like put a whole description in the description of exactly how I went about acquiring it and reaching out to Leonel Brown. And the story behind that is very short. Just I wrote White Morning into the script, and it wasn't until I got to editing, so I had fucking planned everything around having that there, that I learned. I guess I just missed it. For some reason, I knew. Maybe that's why. I don't know. It was one of the only thoughts that I knew that I really loved. There are so many good ones, but I don't commit them to fucking memory. But I knew that one had a few lines that would fit so well, especially if I cut a couple lines that specifically mentions divorce, and then instead it becomes this sort of a modern death would tie in very well to the whole murder thing that happened in my life. So I knew I wanted it, and I'm in editing. I'm getting to that part. I'm doing like the rough pass of just placing everything down, and I'm searching, and I'm finding all these like compilations of like every Disco Elysium thought, and I'm highlighting over the chapters, and I'm like, where the fuck is it? And then at the very end of the video, there's a snippet that's this short. All of them are this long, but there's one that's this short, and it's White Morning. I'm like, what the fuck? And I click it, and it's just silent, and I think, this motherfucker forgot to include it. And I keep searching. Eventually, I think I hit you up and was like, where the fuck is White Morning? And you're like, it's not in the game. They don't read that one.
Yeah.
And I'm like, God damn it. So I reached out to Lenville, and I paid him to read it for me. So that's up for anyone who wants to hear it on my second channel.
Yeah. Good stuff. Yeah, I think the theory is that it's not voiced because it's supposed to be the only fort that's dedicated to you, the player, which is why there's the line that says, and the little man gets smaller, I think it is.
Which also fucking gives you 20% more zoom
or
out.
something, yeah.
Which is mind-blowing to me.
This is something that I was supposed to look into. Well, there's a long list of shit that I was supposed to look into, to be honest, but that was one of them, and whether the zoom in the game is dictated by some kind of code related to White Morning, and whether that's adjustable, which would be interesting. Right. I mean, there must be a metric in there somewhere, but I don't know whether you need to get under the hood into the Unity.
Yeah, because I mean, fucking reasonably, I can't imagine that it actually renders the entire map all the time. That would get extremely heavy. So I feel like even if you could zoom out, I wonder, like, what would you start seeing? Is anything rendered in, like, far away, or is it all just like gray nothingness?
Yeah, probably just.
Is it all just the pale?
Yeah. Well, there's someone who appears on my live streams now and then he was on the first one that I ever did, and long story short, I ended up having to ban him from my little Discord that I started trying out because it was that bad. But yeah, he had a glitch once where ended up clipping into the environment, and he constantly keeps coming back and saying, "I discovered the real pale," and all kinds of mad nonsense.
Well,
thereafter.
We'll see who has the last laugh. When out to be right.
And when I find out he was telling the truth the whole time.
Yeah.
Just before I do these disco questions, actually, I'm very conscious that no fucker ever stays around until the end of the video. So, Jeff, just please pitch us, tell us about your Patreon, tell us about some of the stuff that you can get, early access and stuff. Sell it now rather than leaving it to the end credits, Jeff.
Sure thing. I mean, I'm not a good salesman. I try to make videos for a living. I think a common misconception is that people who make a living doing YouTube are all rich. And I can tell you that is not the case for me. So you can happily know that if you decide to hop on patreon.com/Jeffiot, that I am not planning on where to put my second yacht, but rather I am hoping that in about 3 weeks I will be able to afford rent. For the last 6 months, somewhere between 4 to 6 months, I've been working on a Disco Elysium video that has netted me. I mentioned this in a video somewhere, but like after taxes, $1,000 maybe, and no one owes me anything. Anyone can enjoy anything I do completely for free. What you get on my Patreon, if you were to choose to hop on, is that I do little. I try to post little updates about what I'm up to, and I do a little mini podcast where I just update on the progress of whatever I'm working on, and I answer questions and do some FAQ, whatever shit like that. But honestly, what you get most of all is the knowledge that you're supporting this guy trying to continue to do this full time without dying from some sort of stress-induced seizure within the next 5 years. So that's it. That's all it is.
Not a bad sales pitch, actually, for someone who declared themselves being a bad sales. Please allow me to live for
Yeah.
at least one other month. No, let me spin it another way, right? The time and effort that goes into doing something to the level of quality that Jeff does is worth it in my eyes, right? And if you are someone who really believes in individual creators and raw talent coming through and for your enjoyment, then it's hard for fucking everyone right now, and it's always a horrible thing to ask, but support creators. We're all very quick to accuse established industries like the gaming industry, the AAA gaming industry, music, film. We're always on the fucking end of a pitchfork against those industries, right? And if you want, the best way to combat that is voting with things like your wallet and supporting people who are trying to be adventurous and creative and do new things and do things that are going to entertain you in ways that maybe you didn't know you could be or you'd been craving all of this time. So just try and apply some of that logic to people like Jeff and other creators who you support and get a lot out of, because they really do, like, it's a lot of energy, it's a lot of time, and it's energy and time and stress that also impacts the people around us. Think about the human being behind all of the lovely projects that you enjoy and support where you can. Okay, all right. Got some Disco Elysium questions now, the usual stuff that I ask people at the end. First one. Well, yeah, I mean, we kind of touched on your story with how you ended up playing the game, so we won't go to. I normally like to know what your first impressions were of the game. You kind of talked a little bit about that. So let's go with who is your favourite character in the whole story? Nice and easy.
I suspected the question, and I made sure to pull up all of the portraits so that I'm not missing anyone. Now my cat is really pissed off. She wants to eat. See her.
I can't hear it. I can see.
Yeah, you'll hear it in the recording. Probably my favorite is. It's a tough one, but I love Idiot Doom Spiral.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's so good. I just love his voice acting and his storytelling ability, and I've seen a lot of discourse around, like, what's the deal with him actually? Is he lying? Is there more to the story, or is it really that everyone is always just one mistake away from essentially falling through the floor and disappearing? And I don't even know really what my take is on that, because I think that his whole, that's what kind of makes his character, right? It's sort of like, I don't want to know exactly what is it called the Black Lodge in Twin Peaks? Like, I don't want to know exactly what happens back there or why it works like it does. It just is. And Idiot Doom Spiral, he is. That's what he is. You're getting all of him, all that you're supposed to see of him. You're seeing in the game, and there's something so very low-key funny about him. Like, it doesn't have a lot of laugh out loud moments, but he's got some of the most fascinating character work. I think I really, really enjoy him.
He's got this thing about him, which if you've met enough alcoholics, you'll know that much like the Welkins, they come in various forms.
Yeah.
You get all kinds of different levels of alcoholic, and he's one that I've seen before. Quite articulate, quite seemingly intelligent and thoughtful, and one of the kinds of alcoholic where you wonder how the hell someone like this could be, in the situation they are. Yeah. And I think they did a very good job of contrasting that with the other alcoholics as well. They give a picture into some of the other versions that Idiot Doom Spiral could have been. I think the absurdity of the stories helps a lot in the bits that you talk about being funny. I mean, no logic at all seems to enter the plot line of him losing his keys and his life spiraling out of control, right? It's just like how avoidable all of those things were, and yet you attribute it entirely to like every event that followed, where you literally, like the walls he puts up to between him and taking responsibility for what happened are quite extraordinary, aren't they? And that's what I always find interesting about addicts in general, is that you get this kind of, oh no, well the only reason I'm like this is because of this thing in my life or that thing, and you put up these all these walls to kind of keep yourself away from taking responsibility.
Yeah, I think yes, exactly. While at the same time, to me, there is something fascinating that I'm not even gonna claim as like I think that this is actually what it is, or say like I think that this is possible in real life, because you know. But there is also, to me, something about the possibility that we're all one lost key away from being on the bench, and there's this lyric, doesn't quite 100% apply here, but there's this lyric by one of my other favorite bands, AJJ, that goes, my best friend my friend Aaron says it best, we're all 2 or 3 bad decisions away from becoming the ones we fear and pity. And I really think that there is something to that. There, it's not just. So I guess the major difference is that that's talking about choice and not happenstance, and it's specifically 2 or 3, not a single one. But the possibility that we're all, 2 or 3 bad decisions away from becoming the ones that we fear and pity is, of course, a terrifying prospect, but also sobering. And I think that's. There's something there, man. There's something there with how Idiot Doom Spiral is presented.
And just going back to what we talked about with, innocuous starts to tragedy and disaster, that's exactly it, right? You can be a guy who just shares cigarettes with a friend from school, and before you know it, one day you're in the situation that Frederick found himself in, right? That's all it takes. Yeah. No, I love it, Idiot Doom Spiral. If you haven't already, you should do the Ultra Liberal Political Vision Quest, because it's fantastic and has a lot of Idiot Doom Spiral involved.
That's in my that's in the one playthrough that I'm kind of trying to put all the stuff that I haven't experienced into one last playthrough, where it's like I'm collecting all these things to do into that one, which I know won't be possible because some of the stuff will contradict the other stuff, but theoretically that's in there.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna grab something off screen, but I hear you. Keep going.
Yeah. The only what am I on about? The next question. So, do you have like a favorite, side quest, subplot, story within the story that particularly resonated with you and you loved? I think I know the answer to this.
I mean, can you tell me which one you think?
Working class woman.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, but I think I've been... Man, I really gotta rack my brain here. It's also been a month since I released the video, so it's all a bit more blurry now, but I'm really trying to think, because there's so much... I mean, there's so many little details that I think are so good. I mean, I love... What's the fucking reason? Okay, what's the reason? So, Jean.
Yes.
I didn't pick up on this as I played the game. This is something I've gathered after the fact. He put on the wig and
Oh, yeah.
sunglasses to cheer Harry up.
Mhm.
Like, I that went completely over my head, and that's one of those things that, in the same way that the Titus thing, I've laughed so much every time I thought that, because I guess in some way I thought there was another reason. I thought that he was, maybe, kind of testing Harry's
Sanity, yeah.
yeah, and to see if he would recognize him, or maybe that he thought, I'm gonna, I don't know, fucking disguise myself in a way. But no, he's got a wig and sunglasses on to cheer him up. Like, is that right?
Yeah, do you know the full story behind that?
No, I don't.
So, Guillaume Bevy was a journalist that spent some time in Precinct 41, and was actually hopeful of. He came to Precinct 41 to report on it because he felt that they would. They've obviously got a reputation around Jamrock and all the rest of it, are known as this kind of hard, serious crime-solving machine. And he spends some time with Precinct 41 as kind of like an incumbent, like journalist / police officer, a bit like Trent Heidelstein. He's a civil kind of, he's a civilian, but he's playing a role within the police station. And yeah, he had blonde hair, sunglasses, was just a little bit odd, and Harry actually drove him away. Like, Harry was the reason that Guillaume Bevy was like, I can't fucking do this shit anymore. Yeah. He was another one of Harry's victims. Like, I'm not fucking spending another minute here. And he ended up like leaving. So yeah, it was a very deliberate. He dressed up as that specific journalist because he thought it would make Harry laugh to be reminded of those days. And
that's so good.
Yeah, and which makes it all the more gut wrenching actually, because I reading between the lines, I guess it was something that Jean had maybe done before. Like, he kind of must have known that it would be something that cheered Harry up, right? It must have been. And then,
and also, like, I totally get like what you're saying about like the heart. I mean, he overall, like, Jean is it's especially after everything that Argo said, that like it's he's very, like, I feel misunderstood and a very sad character, and this whole thing that the only reason he hasn't killed himself is because he's so fascinated by how depressed he actually is, and like how far can it get. But like, it's impossible for me to not get stuck on the idea that these two adult men have this like inside joke that is so like jovial and so like,
you're like the two most depressed guys on earth as well, by the way.
And they're like peak their idea of like, this is where it gets fucking hilarious, is putting on a blonde wig and just like showing up when the other one isn't expecting it, and just being like, look at me, I'm the guy that we used to work with that hates
like he
you.
fucking turned up to a murder investigation. I hadn't actually thought about how mad this is, actually, thinking about it. Yeah, he turned up to one of them, and bear in mind, Martinez is already well established as an area that's so dangerous that precincts are arguing over who should be looking after it. Like, no one wants anything to fucking do with it. There's a murder there. You've heard your partner's lost it. He's got no badge. He's got no gun. He's fucked. He's back off the rails. And you still think, I know just the thing. I know just the thing that he's gonna lose it for this, and then we're gonna rope him back in. So let me just get the fucking, and he has the wig. Yeah, I think it's so good, and especially because he is also so, well, it's because he's depressed, but he's so like deadpan and non-comedic that I also like, I envision him not being like, oh, here I am with the fucking wig on, what a wacky situation. He's still like, he's very deadpan in his delivery, that everything about that like detail gets me really good. So I guess out of all of the little, that isn't even like, it's more like a detail rather than like a side plot, I guess. Yeah, but it's no. I mean, it is a side plot. Absolutely, the man with sunglasses is a whole thing, really.
Yeah,
like, and if it went on to inspire someone as incredible as Jamrock Hobo to have it as a profile picture on absolutely everything,
Truly. I did have one other thing, and then I immediately forgot it. Let me scan over the faces here in front of me. God damn it. I had one more. Oh, yeah. Another like detail that I fucking love is something that you and I talked about because you hadn't, which to me is a huge win, is to bring something up that you're like, the what now? Which is that like during my first playthrough, as I'm talking to Doom Spiral, and he talks about the Headless Fallen Rider and all of that.
Oh yes.
And he brings up that like he shows up around the canal at midnight, and immediately I was taking notes during my first playthrough before I knew I was going to do a video on it. But you know, during your first playthrough, there's so much like information coming at you that I was like making notes of things that I wanted to do and look into. And I was like, oh, so that's definitely a thing that I should investigate. And I went to the canal exactly at 12, wearing all of the fallen outfit that I had at that point, which is, I think, everything except for whatever you get at the island.
There's one at the end, isn't there? Yeah.
So I think I had everything except that, and I had it on, and nothing happened. And I was like, damn, okay, I guess there's nothing there. That's a bummer. But then I was, I couldn't like let go of it. So I did some quick Googling, and I saw someone mention something that if you go there with Kim, which led to me months later, towards the very end of editing the video, as I was capturing some other footage, I was like, I'm gonna do the fucking thing, and I did it. And there is, if you're there with Kim, that was the thing. I was there alone on my original playthrough. If you're there with Kim, there is actually a dialogue that happens about like, oh, are you just doing this are you trying to see, well, what if it comes out and all of that? And there's like nothing that special to it, but I feel like it's one of those dialogues, and I have an endless fascination, the whole thing that I know you've talked about a bunch, that this like 40% of the game won't be seen by, like, I am endlessly fascinated by the prospect of which are the least seen dialogues in the entire game. So we have like the mysterious pair of eyes. I love those. This little piece of dialogue that I feel especially close to about the Fallen Rider, just because I felt like I found it myself. So that's also something that I'd love someone to dive into the dialogue trees and maybe make some sort of algorithm that can scrub through it to potentially, like, maybe you could use Chat GPT to use AI, some fucking AI thing to just have it understand how the dialogue tree works, and then tell it to like find something that is like so unlikely that someone would come across, something that has all of these like very specific parameters. You have to be there at this time. You have to be wearing this specific thing and have this and have this. That's something that I wish someone with more capabilities than I would do like a deep dive into, because I'm so fascinated by that.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think so. Robert Kurvitz, when I managed to get a response out of him a long time ago, before I was doing the podcast actually, on Instagram, and he pointed out the one that he thought was the rarest or hardest to get was a 3-tiered electrochemistry check outside the hole in the wall for Clasia, where Harry's electrochemistry starts imagining bottles being put in orifices and shit like that.
Oh yeah, okay. I didn't know about that, but I feel like I've heard you mention that. Maybe when I've asked you for rare scenes.
Rare ones, yeah, probably. Yeah.
If we want to get real rare, I do want to mention that. So there are a couple different like dialogue explorer websites, and I've been using a specific one that also gives you the audio file. For anyone curious about it, the URL is literally just
like an IP address, isn't it?
An IP address. So if you go to, and I do this at your own risk, I guess, but if you go to 134.0.119.41, HTTP at the start, no S, because it's probably not secure. Then you can get the specific one I've used. And if you go there and you go to conversation ID number 7, dialogue ID number 7, I found what I believe to be a testing branch of dialogue, probably from very early in development, still in the code, where they're testing a much more complicated combat system, I believe, if I'm not misremembering.
Mm-hmm.
And that is something that I've never seen anyone discuss anywhere. And I have... Let me just fucking actually pull it up here. Because it has mentions of stuff that I've... So it's... First it says test formatting for poem. Then there's some... Then the smoker on the balcony just recites the entirety of the smallest church lyrics.
Oh, wow.
And then after that... Oh yeah, there's also an example that says check tester deal damage, which leads to 1 damage to volition, 1 damage to endurance. And there's a bunch of nodes here that relate to like the difficulty of, if I'm not misremembering, there should be like a mention of like trying to punch someone. And yeah, it's like a testing branch. It's very, I've not found anything quite like it within the code. And
you were doing some serious archaeological digging, to be fair, during your production of the game. So yeah, to your credit, you did find some really cool stuff.
Someone knowledgeable should really dive in.
Be interested to know who created that in the first place, because it's clearly taken from the blueprint of Artisy, which they use to make all the dialogue. Because Artisy, if you see I shared a picture of him in the Brighton flat making Disco Elysium, and Artisy is, like nodes with Unreal Engine and Unity and stuff. It's all like nodes and fucking shit like that. And you could see all of the if is X go to Y and all of that stuff. And if you take that website that you're talking about, it's basically just like a really stripped down sort of Microsoft fucking, I can't remember what the application's called, where you draw process diagrams, but it's just like that basically stripped down, isn't it?
You got all these like nodes, and you get to see, and it's great for when you need specific lines that mention specific shit. I used it a lot for my video.
Yeah.
But it's
you can just literally type the thing you want, and if you use it in combination with fade, like if you aren't quite sure what you're after, but you know where the conversation happened, you can go to fade, find the line. It'll even give you the number of the line. It's pretty crazy that a game, that there aren't many games out there that even have anything close to that level of like access to that stuff. It's mad, isn't it?
Yeah, and I bet that there are stuff there has to be stuff in here that because I mean, again, probably someone has, but like I've never seen anyone mention this test branch, and that just makes me think that there's gotta be other shit in here, and it's just right here in front of us. It's just the fact that there is
a lot to go through. Yeah,
millions of So
1.2
someone
million
should
words.
scrape this shit, and there's gotta be stuff in there.
Yeah.
That was a long side tangent on my end to a question that I barely remember at this point.
No, I forgot what the question was, but seeing as we're talking about quotes, it does mean that I can nicely lean into the next question, which is, do you have a favorite quote or line in the game?
I mean, honestly, the answer is either one of the ones that I focus on in the video, like it's either I don't want to be this type of animal anymore, one of those, or something from the working class husband, the when you talk to her in the kitchen there, or from White Morning. So it's like it's either one of the ones that I've mentioned that in the video, or, and almost like I'd prefer to have one that is a bit more whimsy, and I feel like a lot of the really whimsy ones
in the darkness should the stars also go out from the communist quest is obviously one, and Sodium and Lights, or the Deserter. That's the ones that people normally go to. I had a really good one from the creative director of Rue Valley, who said the introduction to Kim is his favourite. I was like, yeah, fuck. I always forget that. You know, if an assault were launched on this building right now,
right.
That one when you first meet him. I actually recited it word for word when I spoke to him, but I can't remember it now. Measurehead, I like. I don't know why I'm now going into quotes I like, but
he's got a bunch of really good one. I mean, his
monologue on time and the past is fucking like unbelievable.
And I mean, I can't. I'd be amiss not to mention him talking about semen retention.
Yeah, of course, yeah. And in case anyone forgot, that was all written by Argo as well. So fucking another string to that man's bow. Yeah. Okay. How many of the political vision quests did you do, Jeff? Did you do just one of them? Oh, okay. Which one did you do then on your first playthrough?
Well, on my first, I did none.
Oh, okay.
And then I went back for the part in the video for the
Moral
Intern 1 with the statue and with Noid and climbing up on the horse and all that.
So that means you can only possibly have one favourite political vision quest.
Yeah, and that's what I meant when I said that I'm trying to put all that I have left to do into a single playthrough, but I know for a fact that I can't. Okay.
I always have a day 4 7 a.m. save. I because it means that if I just want to go, because the political vision quests, they can be done in isolation. The only one that is risky to do in isolation is communist, because you need 40 communist phrases to have been said in the lead up to its climax for it to go the way you want. But otherwise you can pretty much, and in the end, like if you've spent all of your save file up to day 4 being communist and then you switch to fascism, in the end Kim's like, I don't know how he squares up his, constant arguing for workers' rights with, all this Kingsman shit, but he seems to manage it. Yeah,
he said something very similar about me, but like he's like both fucking politically ambiguous, or like just like he's a moral, he doesn't want to take any stance, but at the same time he's apparently a communist, and I don't know how he like makes those two kind of go together.
Yeah, it's very good. Do you have a favorite piece from the soundtrack?
I mean, it's gotta be the whirling, just the fucking like I can't.
The 12 PM one, yeah.
Yeah, there's so much good stuff in it, and I think I'm most likely to actually sit and listen to The Smallest Church, but which song do I use in the intro of the video? Now I'm blanking on. I made a cover for the intro of the video.
It's Instrument of Surrender, but it's like a kind of
the one with like
version.
The one with like just the
that's Instruments of Surrender. Yeah,
the one that you get isn't that immediately after
the first
you
one when you first walk outside.
Yeah, I really like that one as well.
Yeah, there's like, what I find with the soundtrack there, as much as I love all of the different tracks, it's weird. C-Power has this knack for having like just small sections of songs that I like way more than the rest of it. Like there's in Instrument of Surrender, there's a bit where it's just a low rumble in the same melody, like a and in Zame there's like, it's the piano from Instrument of Surrender, but just isolated on its own, and lots of these clever ways that they reworked their existing music. I think they're fucking brilliant.
Yeah. Have you listened to 1900?
Doesn't ring a bell.
I'm gonna send you a song. For anyone interested, the band is 1900. So 1900 is the name of the band, and the song that I'm specifically picking will probably be the top result when anyone searches them up, so you don't have to know Swedish to know how to search this title, but it's called Den minsta av segrar. I'm sending you a Spotify link for you to listen to at some point, and I think you'll like it. I think anyone who likes the Disco Elysium soundtrack should listen to 1900. They Swedish dude, very very similar in sound, and I know that at least one of his like albums or EPs, but I think the whole like music project and all the songs they've done is recorded on various old like 1950s recording equipment and like broken cassette recorders that vary the speed, and so it has an extremely like Disco Elysium sort of. They have one called like an EP I think called like Field Recordings, where he played all the songs literally in the middle of a field and just recorded it all on and it's being played back on gramophones and shit, and it's got amazing like texture to the sound. It's especially this song you should check out. I think you'll really like it.
Amazing, thank you very much. I'm just going to ask you two more questions. First of all, is there anything you would change or that you really don't like about Disco Elysium?
I mean, that Titus walk animation could be sped up a little bit. No, I don't know. There probably is, but it almost becomes the sort of like I can't help but get like worried about the butterfly effect. It's just like, say I were to go in and be like, change this shit, and then suddenly the whole game is something else. I just fucking black out and wake up and the game is different.
I personally think it's really difficult to pick out criticisms, but then I would say that, which is why I like to ask it, to be honest. And people often struggle with it, and they end up nitpicking, I think, more than anything.
I'll do this though. So I'm not saying that I want this. First of all, to be clear, I'd prefer the game as it is now to what I'm about to say. However, I'd be interested to play, and I don't think I would hate the game with way less politics in it. And this is like a spicy take, and I get that. But I think that while all the politics in Disco Elysium is really, really well presented and very funny, and it is part of why the world works so well, and it is a big draw for many of the people that hold this game as their favorite game. I'm also of the opinion that there is, which is why in my video I barely talk about the politics of the game at all, because I feel that it at times literally overshadows everything else about the game. And again, if I said, yeah, they could just cut all that politics bullshit, that would be insane. So I am to protect my own safety here. I'll say that that's not what I'm claiming. But I do think that at times, or not even in the game, it's more like surrounding the game. The discourse surrounding the game tends to focus naturally a lot on that, and I kind of don't give a fuck whether or not, because that's a big part of the discourse, like I kind of don't give a fuck whether or not the creators of this game are like, but are they communists or are they socialists? Or actually, as it turns out, many people on the team were more like center leaning. That really doesn't affect me as long as they're not Nazis. I don't really care exactly. And I guess, more of an interesting thought experiment or something. But there's so many aspects of this game that I love, that are pretty much all of them are, at least my absolute favorite aspects are pretty much none of my favorite aspects, I'll put it that way, are related to the politics of Revachol.
I completely agree. I do enjoy the political side of things, but
Yeah,
the way
me
you
too,
talk,
to be clear.
yeah. I mean, like, I'm a absolute slut for politics, as I said to you yesterday. But
Yeah.
I know where you're coming from, and I felt it probably more as, I don't know, the disco guy more than most, because I do feel like there's a slight expectation on me to be really communist sometimes, and I'm just not.
Right.
I've been socialist in my life, and I'm way more left leaning than anything. Especially now, I feel myself being radicalized fucking by the minute at the moment. But yeah, I do always feel a certain pressure to. I mean, maybe I'm just putting it on myself, but I'm very careful now with what I remark on the political world, because there's an expectation, I think, assigned to people who associate with Disco Elysium that they must be, extreme left commies, and it's just not the case, I don't think. And I think to piggyback off your point now, I think that's the only issue I have with it, is it becomes, for a lot of people, the only thing or the only reason that you should enjoy Disco Elysium.
Yeah.
Whereas actually, no, it's not. No, I get the sentiment.
I think that's a good way to put it. It's not that I have anything against the politics in the game. It's more that there's also other stuff, and I won't. Let's not forget that, kinda. And I will say that if planned sequels were to happen, in the way that they were maybe originally envisioned, and if, like, let's say a tabletop game were to come out based on those original plans and everything, I want to imagine that, well, of course, the game Disco Elysium, introducing us to all of this, kind of needs to lay it on pretty thick. And I mean, going back to some stuff that I heard Kurvitz talk about, which is, if you want your player to understand anything, 3 times, like, say it 3 times at the least. If you want your players to know that there is a guy who is whatever, you gotta have that delivered to them 3 times at the very least.
Yeah.
So I think that you kind of have to infuse it as heavily as they did, and I kind of like to imagine that in a possible sequel or whatever, now that everyone is on board with what this world is, maybe it wouldn't be that heavy. Maybe suddenly it's just like, because I don't know, I don't go out in the world and interact with people about politics, other than with, some friends, or when there's something specific going on. But in general, not that I really do this, but if I stop to talk to someone I don't know on the street, we will not be establishing to each other what side of the political spectrum.
Yeah, the first thing out of your mouth before we go any further.
Yeah, yeah, truly.
Yeah, no, I get it. I think we're on the same page there. And beautifully segued into my final question. Given everything that you know, from everything that has been revealed in the last 5 years, let's say, and everything that we know to be kind of in the pipeline, what are your hopes and expectations for the future of Elysium?
Right, damn, that's fucking loaded. It's a good place to end on. I think. Okay, I want to start in this end. I want to say that the disco likes that are coming out, the glass houses, the roof valleys, the all of these,
Your countryman's Esoteric Ebb, by the way, I should point out. That's a Swedish
Sorry,
game.
what?
Esoteric Ebb is a Swedish guy. He's just released a demo. I don't know if you're aware of that one, but I thought
No,
I'd
I'm
point-
not.
It's very, very good. You go and check the demo out. It's fantastic.
Because I played both Rue Valley and Glasshouse. Esoteric Ebb, you said?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much. I will be looking into that. I will say that, and I don't know how to phrase this, the Disco Elysium likes. If you're a Disco Elysium fan, stop comparing them to Disco Elysium and expecting them to live up to Disco Elysium just because the piece of art that they loved and got inspired by is also a piece of art that you love and that inspires you. If you play any of these demos or full games when they come out and you go, yeah, but it's not Disco Elysium, guess fucking what? It isn't. It's not. No one, it isn't. It's not Disco Elysium. It's not gonna be Disco Elysium. And if you expect it to be, then you're going into it setting up to be fucking disappointed, and you're gonna make that dev, if all they hear is like, well, it's not quite Disco Elysium, then fucking what does that do to their like motivation, to their like, they're trying it. So I feel very strongly about this because I have this, my experience has been when looking into like these games, and I think that the comparison is fair. I did a playthrough of Rue Valley on stream quite recently, and I talked a bunch. I compared it a bunch, and I think that's like fine, because the inspiration is very obvious, and they're wearing it on their sleeve. So I don't think there's just anything wrong with comparing them. It's more about managing your expectations. If you think Disco Elysium is the greatest game in the world, why would you expect another game that just happens to have a similar perspective, similar dialogue tree, etc., to meet that? Like, you should go into it with some sort of like, cool, I get to experience a video game. And that's about it. You can't like put more on it. Because the experience might be completely different, good in another way, etc. And I think I'm really excited about the state of Disco Elysium likes right now. And all I wish is that game dev was a little bit easier so that they could be out already, because there are so many of them, and I just want to fucking play them. I want them to be out. I want to enjoy them. I want to make videos about them. I want to talk to the people who made them and all this. So as for the future of Disco Elysium, I have huge hopes for the Disco Elysium likes, and at the same time, to give a more accurate answer to the question, I think that the future of the real Disco Elysium, whatever that is at this point, is, it's bright. All I wish is for the people that made the game I love to make more games, and if they do it together, that would be amazing. But it's not looking like that'll happen. So then I hope that the offshoot groups all on their own make shit that is good and that they enjoy making, and most of all, you're all, how the fuck do I say this? Everyone on these teams are adults, and I think it's easy for people on the outside to talk about everything that happened, but I think and hope that what you had goes deeper than anything that any venture capitalist has the ability to disrupt unless you let them. And even if you never make a game again together, please just fucking be friends. I want everyone that used to be good friends to go back to that, because that's the part that breaks my heart the most, honestly.
Yeah, I agree. That is quite heartbreaking, yeah. Very beautifully put, Jeff, and I will only echo one sentiment, just touching on a point that you made about seeking out exactly what Disco Elysium is. I've also seen the criticism well, it's just copying Disco Elysium. It's like you can't win, right? If you made a complete like for like, you'd be accused of plagiarism and copying and not having an original idea. You come along with an original idea because you were inspired by an original idea, and that's not good enough because it's not the original idea. It does seem like an impossible catch-22. But yeah, overall, I do think the future's very bright. I think there are some incredibly talented people. I've been lucky enough to talk to some of them, and everything I've heard from them tells me that they do get it, and they have their own very, very exciting and unique spins on what they expect to do in that space. Well, thank you, Jeff, for what has been 3.5 hours of just it was just nice to talk to you, to be honest, because we have conversed quite a bit over Discord, and it's nice to just put a face to a name. Well, I mean, your face is fucking everywhere, obviously. I know where, if I need to remind myself of where you are and what you look like, I can do that by going to your YouTube or your Patreon. See how I turned that into some promo there. It's incredible.
Very smooth. He's a professional, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah. It would have been even smoother if I didn't take the opportunity to gloat about my professionalism.
I think back to how we started this, back to Zlatan. I think that's how all people, everyone that's very good at something, they will let you know how good they are at it.
Fucking damn right. So yes, all of you, please go and support Jeff. Jeffiot is over on YouTube. It is Jeffiot, so it's like Jeff, the name, and idiot with the iddy removed. You put them both together, and it's Jeffiot. You do have a second channel as well, Jeff?
Yeah, it's called Extra Jeff, and it's my garbage can. Whatever I want to throw, I throw it there, and I don't give an ounce of effort into anything that goes up there usually.
Yeah.
So that's but you can find White Morning there, and that cost me some money. So check that out.
Yeah, check that out. And do you know what? There's always a place for shit posting anyway. So you got to go and seek it out. No, thank you very much, Jeff. Very beautiful conversation. Really enjoyed it. To all of the audience who've watched along or listened along, thank you again for supporting what is a silly idea, which seems to, be liked by some people. And we'll have more episodes coming soon for you to enjoy. So thank you very much to you, and thank you, Jeff.
Thank you for having me.